Our story begins with our hero. He realizes he's been reincarnated into a world that seems ripped from the pages of a fantasy novel. The first thing he notices is the utter silence. Flickering candles provide a gentle light instead of harsh LEDs. This is it, he thinks to himself, the fantasy world I've always yearned for. Compared to Earth, this world feels like it's centuries behind when it comes to technology. Taking it all in, he quickly realizes he's been born into a ridiculously wealthy family. It's a stark contrast to his previous life as a homeless orphan, who worked himself to an early grave. Well, this is definitely a step up, he thinks with a smile. He also notes that there might be another reason why he thinks he was born into such a rich family. It dawns on him that this child's birth mother was absolutely stunning. He happily realizes that, thankfully, he won't have any problems in his future love life. 3 years pass. Our hero sees the world outside his window. For the very first time, he's finally out of his crib. And in that moment, he's captivated by the sheer beauty of the civilization before him. And so, he realizes that the world outside his crib is unbelievably vast, even considering the fact that he's still just a child. But unfortunately, his nanny finds him and quickly pulls him away from the dangerous window. Our little hero discovers that his family is part of a grand duchy, which was a well-known fact throughout the kingdom. Our protagonist was the son of the Grand Duke of Dragonia
in the kingdom of Learheart.
In other words, he was a duke himself, and so his journey begins. At the age of 8, he began to learn swordsmanship. Like any future knight of the realm, he dreamt of becoming a knight, just like in the fantasy stories. He imagined wielding his kai, imbuing his sword with auras. His swordsmanship instructor was a retired knight from the royal palace, a holy knight named Sargotik. The young boy didn't yet understand what it truly meant to be a holy knight. The only thing he was learning from that old geezer, he was literally working himself to death. He pauses, thinking that all the pressure he was forced to endure, to carry, was more like child abuse. 14 years have now passed. Someone had mentioned that a holy knight was truly a monster in human form, and becoming one was incredibly difficult. Little Protinho was nearly collapsing, carrying that heavy stone on his back. He explains that to become a knight, one must complete missions and undergo rigorous training, and thus become a knight of the realm through experience and honor, then be chosen by the holy order and drink the holy water. And on top of all that, our hero, being the son of the Dragon Duke, he needed to learn everything about becoming the Grand Duke. And that's when the silver-haired boy received a brutal thrashing from the knight. I kept thinking about the lessons he was enduring. To become the Grand Duke's successor, he still had to train to become a great holy knight, and he was so desperate in the midst of that training that he found himself questioning if a god truly existed in this world. He wanted to beg for salvation. 16 years passed, and the silver-haired young man was out exploring the world, searching for something in this rainy region. He mentions that he began wandering the world to be recognized by the goddess and become a holy knight. After accepting his mission, he wondered just how was he going to achieve this acknowledgement from the goddess. Meanwhile, near where our hero was, a major rebellion was breaking out. People were desperately pleading for help, crying out that a horde of diabolical orcs were attacking their village. Someone mentions that if a person continues to accumulate fame and perform good deeds, the goddess will eventually appear before them. But of course, he finds these claims utterly ridiculous. One of the characters, a guardian of the galaxy, continues walking towards the chaos, noting that there are many monsters there. The poor villagers are already accepting their fate, facing such a massive orc army. And that's where our little hero begins his journey as a knight. He arrives, immediately grabbing the attention of the desperate villagers, of the orcs. And then he unleashes an incredibly powerful blow, splitting the guy clean in two. The little Paul had mentioned that the king didn't have many enemies. 20 years pass, and this moment becomes significant because he finally encounters a goddess. The young goddess speaks to him seductively, revealing that he is the son of the wall freak dragon, the lion dragon. It's at this moment that our little hero realizes they weren't lying. She truly exists, and she's a goddess. The goddess continues, explaining that she has a mission for our hero, a mission to prove his honor and faith. He accepts all of her commands without hesitation. Ariana, after years of toiling as a slave, eventually, he rose to become a holy knight. From there, he participated in countless battles and raids, raid after raid. He attacked orcish hordes, tore goblins to shreds, and dismantled an evil cult. Eventually, he became the kingdom's war knight, with the authority to command other holy knights. He slaughtered over 700,000 orcs, including women and children. His hatred for the orcish race was a consuming fire, but amidst the chaos he lived in, he found a strange sense of peace. 35 years passed in this way, and then the little boy's father passed away. This all happened while he was fighting the archers and demons summoned by the Empire. Our little protagonist keeps thinking to himself, orcs are already a big enough headache. But now, we've got devils and all sorts of crazy demons running around. He figures that this is exactly why humanity needs to believe in the gods and live devoutly for them. And our little guy, just like me when I play the game, absolutely hates mages. Those guys are so darn treacherous, man! But our hero mentions that despite all of this, they need to choose a holy knight, someone to become the successor of King Leonhard, who died a valiant death. And so, amidst all the chaos, our little hero spoke with the saint once more. She continued to praise him, calling him her faithful knight. She welcomed him as a symbol of honor and faith. And it was on that day that the goddess descended upon them. She chose him for a position of great honor and power. And in that moment, he received the sacred treasure, the goddess Leona's heart. With this treasure transplanted into his body, he swore to protect the Holy Grail. And so he became the Grand Duke of Draconia. And the king of the Lionheart Kingdom. 80 years passed, and our little hero was still there, perfectly preserved. Friends, he explains that a lot has happened in the meantime. For starters, there were 3 major wars with the orcs, and in the midst of these wars, a hunchbacked goblin freak evolved into an archdemon. And for half a day, the Empire created countless miserable situations. Our hero claims this is all because they accepted the Northern Empire, which worshipped some kind of cursed being. And it seems that at that moment, a purge of the pagans began. He continues, saying this is what happens when people give human rights to those who don't even deserve to be slaves. He thinks he should have conquered all of them. And so 96 years pass. And it seems those wretches of the empire he mentioned have finally met their doom. It seems, gentlemen, that our little hero was right all along, since this empire's emperor practically made 3 million living sacrifices. And if you understand, it's kind of like, how can I say? I'll give you a hint. Crossroads, chicken, liquor, you know? Well, let's continue. And so our hero was saying that this emperor had crossed all the lines. He remembered that this scumbag used to say he didn't want to die, but the jerk just committed mass suicide, along with 3 million citizens of the capital. And in the aftermath, he became a despicable monster, completely demonic, and thus he unleashed chaos upon the capital. And so, our hero eventually rallied his knights and retrieved his sacred sword, which still bore the greasy residue of last year's orc slaying. From the previous year, he told his companions that they would make a quick stop by the Empire, and just like that, 121 years passed. Our protagonist reflects that he did his best, but the world was crumbling around him, despite his best intention. He had tried to destroy evil, using all the holy power the continent possessed, but he had failed. Meanwhile, our hero consoled one of his soldiers, telling him that he could be proud since his father had died with honor. He's definitely having a feast with the gods right now. Meanwhile, our hero tries to rally his army. But in reality, he's keenly aware of the truth. His soldiers are trembling with fear. Women comfort their crying children, swallowing their own tears. The looming chaos is terrifying. Young men clutch the dying embers of resistance in their hands. Knights try to plant seeds of hope. In barren land, drenched in blood, the young mage continues to encourage his knights. He keeps thinking that his goddess, the owner of the sacred sword and the sacred spear, and also the Holy Grail, will surely protect them. He shouts to his soldiers. He tells them to let their fury consume them. Let that rage burn for all eternity. And as our hero marches toward the impending battle, he continues his mental conversation with the goddess, wondering what he, a foolish knight, should do. Just then, he hears the goddess's voice. She calls him her blessed and honored knight. The goddess continues to comfort him, promising that she will always be with him until the very end. Filled with divine fervor, the protector rallies his troops. Charge, he cries, upon the demons! That winter, but they face their final battle against billions of demons, swarming across the land. He remembers the horrific clash. Barbarian slaves were used as mere meat shields, but even they, he recalls, fought with dignity until their last breath, while the civilian knights, armed with spears and shields, also perished with honor, alongside the glorious knights. And of course, the chosen agent of all the gods, sacred gods. The prophet tells of how he stood there slaying demons until the very end. Alone, he was the last one standing. He unleashed his full might on the battlefield, showing those wretched creatures the true power of a sacred knight. And so 217 years passed. Winter's icy grip still held the land. The years continued to crawl by. 231. 234. 256. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, our hero managed to destroy the last remaining demonic portal, and so there was nowhere left for them to run. Our hero turned to face the demons and roared at them. You vile, rotten souls. He declared that at this very moment, they were trapped in this world with him. Seeing this, the demons panicked. After all, they were facing the colossal and utterly unhinged being, Dasharoi. He continued to promise their annihilation. Not a single one would escape his wrath. And so, 300 years passed. The Protector had finally vanquished the last demon, the most cruel and abhorrent of them all, the creature known as the Archdemon. It seemed that at the heart of the battlefield, a mysterious portal suddenly appears. The people behind our hero are dressed in rather unusual clothing. They don't seem to be from the Middle Ages, but from modern times. Brazil urges them to get up. He tells these new arrivals that now's not the time to be on the ground, because the battle isn't over yet. A young woman asks, "Who is this person in front of you?" And the little hero introduces himself, announcing that he is King Leonhardt, Knight of the Glorious Knights, and he declares that he is the agent who carries the will of the sacred timeline. His name is, Leo Dragon, the Lionheart, the little Protector, completely naked, mind you. And at the ripe old age of 300, the Protector encountered the Earthlings once more, again. And so the Night King returned. In the next chapter, from the perspective of the Earthlings, a portal suddenly opens in the middle of Seoul. It's a black portal classified as unidentified. The Korean Hunter Association and the Global Hunter Association, as well, request assistance from the world's top guilds. They ask them to participate in the raid. But unfortunately, their requests are denied because the portal's danger level is unknown. And in the end, the government has ordered the Korean Hunter Association to enter first, which was basically a death sentence. And at that moment, from the young woman's perspective, she spots a naked guy, and we realize that this whole time the young woman has been remembering everything that happened earlier that day. This young woman's name is Hanhari. She's the branch manager of the Korean Hunter Association. Her colleague offers her a cup of coffee and asks if she's all right. This is Kim Jin-soo. He's the general manager of the Korean Hunter Association. He continues trying to make small talk with her, and I'm not sure where that coffee he gave her went. But in response,
Hanhari.
She mentions that no one believes his story. He replies that he expected as much, and it's no wonder. After all, it was a black-rank demonic portal. Even an archdemon showed up. And get a load of this crazy detail, she adds. She continues, saying that coming back alive without help from other guilds is already a miracle. But completing the mission single-handedly is insane. And all of this was because of just one man. And here we find our young hero, back on his home turf, inside a soundproof room, or at least a room designed for sound isolation. Someone is talking to our hero. Sound acoustic. Let's just say it's soundproof. Soundproof, yeah, that's the word. Anyway, inside this sound-isolated room, a bald man is speaking with our hero, asking him a few questions. He starts by asking if he's a survivor, and he lived inside the portal. Ratinho confirms this, but he clarifies that he's actually a survivor from another world. He goes on to explain that there were others who managed to survive within the portal realm. Apparently, these portals, which have been appearing all over the world for the past 30 years, share some similarities. The truth is, inside these portals, there are only two distinct possibilities. Either it's a world on the brink of destruction, or it's a world already destroyed. Sometimes survivors manage to return to Earth, retaining the incredible strength they gained in these demonic realms. This is the detail that made governments to treat these individuals with the utmost care. They were also devising plans to recruit these people to aid humanity. The young woman continues, telling her companion that they absolutely must recruit this young man, no matter the cost. After all, he's incredibly strong. Her companion agrees, pointing out that even A-rank hunters risk their lives when facing high-ranking demons. He goes on, emphasizing the fact that the protagonist obliterated an archdemon with a single attack. It's monstrous. An archdemon is a creature that even the most skilled S-rank hunters are terrified of. And our hero not only destroyed it, which left him trembling in fear, and with a single blow, our little hero completely obliterated the monster, utterly destroyed it. And we can see our hero, the dancer, the ballerina, light on his feet. Gabriel continues by saying his only worry right now is the cultural differences he might encounter. After all, he's basically royalty now. The young girl, watching with her friend, reassures him that everything will be fine, and she knows this just from hearing his voice. She's certain this girl's already head over heels, man. And the moment she stops talking, everyone hears our hero yell, calling someone a bug. And then all hell breaks loose. Everything explodes, just with his spiritual pressure alone. Experiencing this, she's completely stunned, since that glass could even hold back high-caliber monsters. And there's little Protino, fuming, asking the bald guy with him how he dares to use and tarnish the glorious name of Leonardo da Vinci. Gabriel watches all of this unfold, and then says to the young woman, "He's a good person, right? The poor girl is completely flustered, saying it must just be a minor cultural shock. And for us to understand what happened here, folks, the story goes back just 15 minutes. There was the bald guy talking to our hero, who suddenly appears. On the other hand, he finds the whole situation very strange, but he adds that everything happening to him right now is a gift. He recalls his past life as an orphan, who worked so hard in his 20s that he died from exhaustion. After that, he was reincarnated into another world, became a king and a knight of a kingdom for over a century. After conquering the demon world, he spent over 200 years hunting demons. That's 300 years of relentless hunting. He thinks it's a relief, actually, since he doesn't have any memories of this place. From what I understand, gentlemen, our little guy would rather hunt demons and then be stuck in 7-1, 7-0. Yeah, that's how he died, from working. It's like... The bald man continues to address the protagonist. He had mentioned his name was Leon Dragon. Leon Art. Our hero just stares, studying the bald man intently. He sizes him up. He thinks to himself, even though he's in this new world, it's probably best not to reveal that he used to be, well, an earthling. And so our hero decides to stick with the king persona, the demon-slaying king of 300 years. It's a much better story than being an orphan who worked himself to an early grave. Our little protagonist demands to be addressed as Your Majesty, and then under his breath mutters, "What a playboy." The bald man, seeing all of this, just stands there, completely bewildered. And so, since he can't do anything else, the cheeky fellow addresses the little guy as Your Majesty. Seeing this whole charade, the little guy realizes that the other guy is just playing along. The lion starts to think that maybe the bald man is actually a decent guy, a good person. Or maybe the government is just being overly cautious about how to approach a survivor from another world, about how to approach him. Gabriel continues, explaining that the portal from his world suddenly opened up into this one. He then asks our hero if he was the one who summoned all those demons, and so the little silver-haired knight confirms it. Our hero continues, explaining that he annihilated all those evil creatures and protected the honor of the knights. The silver-haired knight, puffed up with self-importance, orders the bald man to be his temporary secretary. Just temporary, he emphasizes. The silver-haired knight goes on, saying that he'll grant the man the privilege of recording this glorious incident. A truly glorious incident, he adds. The bald man, witnessing this whole charade, simply accepts. After all, it's his job. Next, the silver-haired brat asks the bald man if they don't have any rules of etiquette around here about how to address royalty. In other words, our hero's getting hungry. He's eyeing up the old man. Seeing this, he starts ordering food on iFood, or he starts thinking about what to eat. He's quick on the uptake. And while the food's being prepared, our little protagonist asks the old man what he'd like to eat. What in the world is going on here? He wonders. But our hero remains lost in thought. He needs to figure out what happened to Earth while he was gone. And so the bald man begins to explain. This nightmare began suddenly, he says, and about 30 years ago. He continues, explaining that portals began opening up all over the world, spewing forth monsters and demons. He says that after that, a constant state of emergency was declared. After suffering heavy losses, they discovered each portal has a theme and a specific objective to complete. If a portal is left unattended, it results in something called a dungeon break, and then all the monsters pour out onto Earth. Just then, there's a knock at the door, and the baldy man knows perfectly well that this must certainly be our hero's meal. Our hero lies there deep in thought, and he says to himself, this is really strange. He recalls that in his old world, demons would invade, spreading like a kind of mold, only appearing after a rainfall. Swarms of those pests would suddenly emerge. But strangely enough, this place has these portals and these mission-type things, like it's all some kind of video game. He continues to ponder, thinking about how in his world gods existed, and perhaps these challenges are divine tests, trials designed to train him. Just then, the bald man enters and addresses Your Majesty that the food is ready, and so the little guy just stares at the spread. The moment our hero lays eyes on the food, his face screws up in disgust. This, he remarks, is bone broth, simmered for hours, and seasoned with salt and black pepper, and some chichim? I have no idea what that is. He continues, back when I was a laborer on Earth, this was the kind of food that fueled my soul. For decades, people are practically condemned to enjoy this stuff, he adds, because they don't know any better. They've never experienced the joys of real cuisine. But our hero forces himself to swallow the saliva, pooling in his mouth. He turns to the bald man and asks, what in the world is this in front of me? In response, he's told that the dish is called salongtang. It's known as food for the souls of commoners. The little boy becomes absolutely furious. He slams his hand on the table, shattering it. and shouts, "How dare you besmirch the glorious name of Leon?" Poor bald Hurt trembles in fear. The little boy continues to rage, yelling at the man. He demands, "Are you insane, serving me peasant food? Food fit for a commoner." And so, our hero realizes that the lion, dragon, and lionheart are the royalty of this world. In other words, a representative of the goddess, guardian of the Holy Grail, and wielder of the sacred blade and sword. The one who defeated Malos, the lord of chaos, and all 23 archdemons, the sworn enemy of demons, having slain millions of them. The very embodiment of the 300-year war's history. And finally, a returnee who was once an earthling. The little dark-haired boy is furious, and he vehemently declares that all of this is because earthlings have no religious faith whatsoever. He claims enlightening the minds of the commoners is the royal family's duty. He continues to think that even though he's returned to this world, he's still a king. What happened next was the little guy was there, savoring a delicious piece of meat. Meanwhile, Gabriel was wondering, how on earth could this guy not like his chicken or his rice and beans? The young woman glanced at the plate, where the little guy was enjoying a huge piece of meat. She thought to herself sadly, he's having steak and a glass of a vintage 1993 red wine. And so, in the next scene, the guy tells the young woman that she's going to talk to the main character first. She gets scared and asks why she has to go, since she can barely even understand his language. But the guy insists. He thinks she's more interested in him. He even remembers complimenting her, calling her brave. At least he won't kick her out now, he figures. And so, the young girl arrives in the dining hall. She addresses him formally, "Your Majesty." Remaining polite and respectful, she apologizes for interrupting his meal. Specifically, while he was eating, the young protagonist stops eating and looks at her. "You must be that sword," he thinks. "The Shin I saw earlier." He quickly invites her to sit down. Beaming, the young girl gives a discreet thumbs up behind her back, signaling to her companions. She asks the protagonist, "Is the food to your liking?" "It's not bad," he replies casually. He says he could taste the sincerity and the care the chef put into preparing the steak. Jin Ayak adds that his harshness wasn't because the food was too simple. It was because of their attitude towards the king. He explains that when greeting royalty from a foreign nation, proper respect must be shown. He then asks the young woman if this disrespect is due to her nation's status. This question clearly frightens her, and she quickly apologizes to our hero. The young woman, terrified, stammers out an apology. She explains that she didn't realize she was being disrespectful. It was simply ignorance on her part. Anyway, to make a long story short, the two introduce themselves, and our hero mentions he's heard quite a bit about this world, especially about the demons. He asks the young woman if those wicked creatures ever show up around here. The girl confirms. "That's exactly right," she says. Just then, the young woman's organization informs Harry, that's the woman's name, that she has only one mission: to get our hero to join the Hunters Association. She continues to ponder, thinking she at least needs to get him to join their country. She wonders if perhaps, if His Majesty King Dara gives royal permission, the South Korean government will take care of him. From this moment on, she continues explaining that from this moment on, there's an intelligence war going on, all just to find survivors from other worlds, and that's why she has to do everything in her power to get the protagonist to form alliances with other countries. The young man then adds that as long as he's in this world, he'll have a duty to go to the battlefields. Since he's an honorable knight, it's simply his duty as a warrior. The young woman brightens up, beaming as she asks our hero if he would like to disaffiliate from his Hunters Association. In response, the protagonist states that a king, however, cannot be a soldier in another nation's army. He declares all of this with great passion, that he's going to create a brand new knightly order in this world. The young woman's reaction is one of complete bewilderment. She's clearly struggling to understand what's happening. Some time passes. The young woman keeps questioning her companion about what their superiors had to say about all of this. In response, the young man asks why their superiors would even have an opinion on the matter. After all, they have to support the hero regardless. He goes on to say it's a good thing the hero didn't end up in another country, or worse, discovered by one of the other major guilds. The young woman looks dejected. She says she never would have thought that the government-affiliated association would have to bow down to the hero. She continues to fume, blaming the whole mess on those good-for-nothing big guilds who flaunt their wealth and power. And in the next scene, a deafening alarm blares. The young man grabs his phone. The message alerts him to a dungeon break on the Ronin Plains. Panic sets in. He knows that a dungeon break in a farming region means one thing: demonic elements will completely paralyze food production. Completely. Lavinia asks her companion if that S-rank hunter isn't with the Phoenix Guild, wouldn't he be there, she wonders. She's still convinced he's strong enough to stop this dangle outbreak, but the little rascal insists he knows better. He's certain that this wretch has a different plan, and he continues urging them to go to this place immediately. Meanwhile, to add to the chaos, observing the unfolding events, he realizes his fellow Earthlings are in trouble. He understands perfectly. If the demons reach the farmland, they'll infect the crops, and nothing will ever grow there again. And so, he channels a strange aura into his hand. He's certain this place doesn't have this kind of energy. And so our hero continues his inner monologue, wondering if he's all right. The scene shifts to a gleaming white castle. Inside, a young man is deep in thought. Next, we see a vast field of crops, and near the edge of the field, a gigantic crimson portal pulsates with energy. The head honcho, the leader of the hunters, is staring into a group of idle hunters. He wants to know why they're just standing around doing nothing. It seems like these guys were already waiting for the guild to arrive. And that guy with the red hair? Gentlemen, that's Lee Yoon, the S-rank hunter. And the newcomers? That's General Kim along with a brave young woman. I've forgotten her name. I think it's Han Harry. General Kim quickly realizes the scoundrel before him intentionally let the dungeon break. And surely, they did this because their demands weren't met. The Phoenix Guild had been continuously demanding a tax exemption on profits from the gates. They had made significant profits from byproducts obtained from the gate, such as magic crystals and monster materials. They simply wanted a tax break on payments, amounting to $1 trillion. General Kim continues to think these scoundrels already have too many benefits as a large guild. But I never thought those fools would actually do it. Just because they got rejected, they'd stoop this low. Supervisor Rari continues pleading with the jerk, trying to convince the S-rank hunter. We have to close that portal, she insists. Immediately. It's already been open for over a week. If you let this continue, the arrogant hunter cuts her off. I know exactly what will happen, he sneers. The rights to that portal will go to someone else. It's the law, sweetheart. And frankly, I don't care. The rude hunter continues. There's nothing we can do about it. Your guild members are badly injured. He continues. It's going to be incredibly difficult for me to do anything. In this condition, he goes on to say, we'll handle this tomorrow, young lady. But unfortunately, we don't know what could happen. If we wait too long, the young woman starts arguing with him, and General Kim tries to intervene and calm her down. She turns and says, you know perfectly well what will happen if the Ronin plains become infected. In response, the ordinary man says, I couldn't care less, and asks the young woman, why are you being so childish? The ordinary man continues, reminding her of the project he assigned her. Last year, the commoner basically states that in this world, money and power equal justice, and who should arrive at this very moment? Our hero, of course. He thinks to himself that the commoner's views are shallow and outdated. The young woman almost calls the prince by his first name, but quickly corrects herself, addressing him as Your Majesty. The prince, noticing her near slip-up and how close she came to using his given name, reminds her that it's disrespectful to speak a king's name so casually. He sets the tone, making it clear that he only permits her to address him by his royal title. The rank S commoner starts yelling at the prince, demanding to know who he is. He remarks that the prince looks like a Westerner, but our hero quickly tells him to shut his mouth. He can't believe some random commoner would dare speak to him that way. The S-rank hunter is absolutely furious. What's the problem with this? He seethes. Commoner in front of me. The jerk is absolutely livid with our hero. He starts to ignite his hand with fiery power. Do you, he asks menacingly, have a death wish? Harry quickly tells the S-rank hunter to back off and let our hero pass. He's a survivor, she explains. The jerk immediately understands. He quickly changes his tune. My apologies, he says. I was too harsh. He introduces himself as a member of the Phoenix Guild. The jerk continues to speculate about our hero's origins. Perhaps he emerged from a gray portal, or maybe one of a different color. But the silver-haired man interjects, a king doesn't repeat himself. In the next scene, the silver-haired man questions General Kim. What exactly is going on here? He demands. He tells the others to give him a good summary. The soldiers immediately perk up, realizing the hero is there to help. Supervisor Harry explains that there's been a dungeon break. When a dungeon break occurs, demonic entities pour out and infect the land. This is why nothing grows in infected areas. She goes on to explain to the hero that the Ronin plains are extremely important to the region of cultivation, and that's why the situation is so dire. She continues explaining that at this very moment, demonic energy from the portal is beginning to contaminate the entire land. And so, the next person asks what the solution is. The answer. The young woman states, we must purify the infection and conquer the dungeon as quickly as possible.
We need to get rid of that dungeon immediately.
Our hero understands the gravity of the situation. The elder continues, summon the army. Tomorrow, at the appointed time, before these insignificant creatures have a chance to launch their attack, I will personally take action. The young woman beams at this news. He simply states that he won't attack right now, because there's a small detail. As the king of a foreign nation, he can't carry out any military actions in another country's territory, even if he wanted to. He explains that first, he needs permission from this nation's king. The young woman, observing this, says it's fine. He can do whatever he wants. But in response, the young hero says there are rules for everything, and this is the proper procedure. He then questions, how can he call himself an honorable knight? An honorable knight if he doesn't respect the laws of the land? The S-rank guy, watching the hero's actions, thinks the hero is a complete idiot, who's even crazier than he is. And in the end, they manage to send a message to the president. Some time passes. The dark-haired boy had told the young girl to make some preparations. She asks him why he plans to use these dolls in his plan. Our hero explains that he needs them to purify the sacred lands of his kingdom. The young girl is a little confused, but if he needs these straw dolls, she won't question him. She mentions that he asked for two things. One of them was a straw doll. Our hero observes that these women were the ones who made the straw dolls. And the other detail was that the doll makers had to be women who had given birth. And so our hero began to evaluate each doll, searching for the absolute best. And just like that, a doll-making competition erupted in the middle of the plains. He examined each doll, one by one. And each one was a bigger disappointment than the last. He was in disbelief. How could someone create something so utterly horrendous? He didn't waste any time before dismantling the next one completely, declaring it an absolute failure. More dolls were presented, and each met the same fate, instantaneously destroyed, one disaster after another, until finally a young woman approached. He looked at her doll, and the old woman did it. And he was impressed. He continues to ask the woman how many children she has given birth to. The old woman says she's had 12. In response, he says that she truly gave birth to patriots. While the silver-haired man continues kissing the old woman's hand, he adds that normally he would personally send knights with a medal to present to her. But at the moment, given his situation, things aren't very favorable, so he will just have to thank the old woman personally. Did I just call her young lady again? Right, the old woman. And so our hero continues with his plan, doll in hand. They set up an altar right in the middle of the farm, he continues, explaining that the conditions for the ritual have been met. The protagonist pulls a goblet from his dimensional storage. He chants a few words, speaking of the fertile earth of this land. He explains that the people of this land are offering the harvest doll to him. And with a heartfelt plea he asks for her blessing. Magically, drops of dew begin to form inside the goblet. The young girl witnessing this is mesmerized. Everyone notices the sun beginning to rise. A crimson light paints the clouds. A new day is about to begin. As the sun climbs higher, its first rays break through. The S-rank hunter's party watches intently as the dewdrops fall onto the doll. And now the doll starts to move. And gentlemen, the doll simply begins to speak and calls the protagonist by his first name. He even calls him child. In response, he bows to the doll, saying that he greets the great Mother Earth. And it seems her name is Demeter, the goddess of life and fertility. In the next scene, our little protagonist is still there greeting Mother Earth. He continues on, saying a whole bunch of things in his greeting. The young lady, well, in response to this, she goes on, mentioning that this world is also being infected by evil. And she says that the land here is already infected. Or rather, she mentions it's true. He mentions that in this world there are also species of evil beings in this land. However, this world has no divinities. The Guardian continues speaking, comparing them to commoners, saying he fears that these vulgar inferior pigs might sully his eyes. In response, the goddess states that ignorance and greed cannot always be judged as sins, since these are the natural characteristics of mortals. The goddess then asks our hero what he plans to do now. Little snake. He states that it's not difficult to blend in among swordsmen. However, the authority of a conqueror is divine, and so he declares that he will ensure that both duty and authority will belong to him as well. He will educate the ignorant and guide them to the righteous path until the new pantheon arrives on this land. And so the goddess asks if by chance the protector has any requests for her. It's at this moment that our hero makes his request. He asks her to rid this land of its impurity and purify it completely with her angelic magic. He adds that he's certain this isn't something she desires to do, but he implores her nonetheless. He begs her to restore this land's purity. In response, the goddess declares him the leader of her temple, her champion. She then releases a single drop of divine magic. The moment the drop hits the ground, it erupts into a whirlwind of spiritual energy. The energy begins to spread throughout the area, and that energy, brimming with divine grace, purifies every last grain of the surrounding earth. The little sprout continues yelling for the others to watch and learn. He calls them ignorant, unable to understand or educate themselves. The heroic sprout goes on to say that what they are witnessing is a world blessed with divine power, a newly born and prosperous world. The little sprouts are completely awestruck. And the little sprout continues speaking. This is the righteous wrath of a living being. And now this land is fertile. He declares that this is proof of an eternal promise. The commoner, witnessing this, lets out a snort of disgust. Quickly, the loudmouth shouts, "Don't be fooled! Crops grown with magic are always poisonous." He continues, addressing everyone. "Surely you all know this already." Our young protagonist, seeing such ignorance, becomes enraged. He quickly retorts, "These crops are blessed by a deity, by a divinity." He asks the commoner, "How dare you?" He dares to judge her, as if she were the one who poisoned him. The commoner continues to call the straw doll stupid, an idiot. Our hero stares at the man, thinking, I'll only forgive ignorance once. He warns the man not to take the goddess's name in vain. "Don't sully her name with that filthy mouth of yours," he commands. The S-rank hunter just stands there, completely oblivious. Panic sets in for the scheming man. This can't be happening, he thinks frantically. Not to him. His meticulously crafted plans are about to be ruined because of this meddling hero. Rage boils within him. He fumes silently. "I won't let this happen." He decides he'll expose the hero's lies. Quickly, he continues speaking for everyone to hear, explaining that they still need proof, and that he hopes the cultivator will act for the good of the people who will eat this harvest. And so the young man quickly mentions that he will provide an appraiser. And this character here, he's the one who's going to do the thing, folks. He excuses himself and begins his spiel. You can see a kind of aura, or whatever it is he's doing there. Apparently his magic is some kind of scanner. When he sees that blessed rice, he realizes its stats are of a rare rank. To summarize it for you all, if someone eats this rice, simply put, they could even be cured of cancer. The young man is in disbelief at what he's seeing. Commander Kim thinks for a moment, then quickly orders someone to bring him a pot. He wants to eat this rice as soon as possible. Time passes. The soldiers have prepared his rice. The moment the captain takes a bite, he feels a surge of power. Multiple buffs activate. His stamina recovery rate increases to 100 per minute. Gentlemen, along with his mana regeneration rate, the duration of these buffs is a full 8 hours. He's in disbelief. How can simple rice be equivalent to a booster worth 3 million won per bottle? Meanwhile, in the background, the young woman is still frantically calling her manager. She keeps saying she has groundbreaking information. Absolutely bombshell news. And the young girl, she's so stunned. She's got a mouthful of rice. The captain tells her to swallow it, and she gulps it down. She goes on to explain that she was so caught up in the delicious meal that she accidentally ate a bug. Then she says that she received a buff because of it. Everyone is in disbelief. The captain wonders if this blessing extends to the entire land, meaning everything in the area is blessed. The captain immediately gives the order to gather as many crickets as possible so they can all enter the portal fully buffed. And with that, the motivation of the hunters skyrockets. In the next scene, the goddess calls out to our protagonist. She continues, saying that it seems she's fulfilled her duties in this land and that she must now return to her own world. The little protagonist expresses his gratitude and says that he will never forget her kindness. And so, the goddess asks him to allow her to say one last thing. She tells him to eat some of her food. And then the young girl begins to fade away as the goddess departs from the girl's body. Next, the young girl gets the protagonist's attention and asks him what just happened. The little guy, in short, mentions that this is all about divine power. He asks her if in this world there might be a god. In response to this, the young girl seems a bit hesitant and mentions that she doesn't really know. The silver-haired one explains that in this world, a proper life is built upon divine power. And he continues, telling them to keep this in mind. And as he mentions that, now that they're ready, it's time for them to enter the portal. The extra in the back asks his boss if by chance the Razo Guild will be okay with this, since at this rate, the plan they worked so hard on, it all went down the drain, and the hunter ranker is absolutely furious. He continues to relentlessly blame the protagonist, since it was all his fault. The ranker rants that if it weren't for the protagonist, the government wouldn't have had any choice but to meet his demands. He fumes, wishing the protagonist would just suffer once and for all. But then the ranker has an idea, and the lackey behind him asks what's going on. "What's your master planning now?" In response, he tells his lackey not to worry, because this portal has somehow already been attacked. The lackey looks confused. The ranker explains that it was a bit tricky to manage. But before the lackey can respond, the narrator chimes in, explaining that there's an A-rank monster inside, and he continues to think that the little hero is probably just a support character who casts blessings. He's certain the hero doesn't have any combat abilities whatsoever, and that can only mean one thing. They're going to fail. He goes on to say that inside that portal lies another monster, a monster that can't be defeated through normal means. Inside the portal, we see a cavernous space with huge stalactites, and there's the group that the hero is loosely allied with. The little guys just finished explaining what happens after defeating a boss inside a dungeon, and the little guy finds this quite interesting, doesn't he? After all, a duel with the boys sounds like a lot of fun, at least for him. The squad continues forward, and our hero spots a bunch of gruesome remains, really brutal stuff. One of the kids comments on it. He mentions he's confused because those other guys had said they'd tried to clear the dungeon before, but it looks like there are way more monsters than he thought. One of the kids seems to recognize something, a specific characteristic of this dungeon, and our hero just nods along, since he has no clue what these characteristics mean. So the young girl continues to explain things to our hero. While the number of monsters usually decreases as you defeat them, like most portals, in the case of skeletons or zombies, or even certain demons, as long as the boss remains alive, they'll just keep regenerating endlessly. Our hero finds this characteristic quite interesting, so he assumes this means things will only end after defeating the boss. The young girl continues, suggesting that maybe a necromancer controls these skeletons. At least she relaxes. The next frame shows a system panel, announcing that the dungeon break has just begun and that the danger is deadly. She explains that every being inside the portal now has a time limit. A knight commander of sorts is there, advancing with his troops, and suddenly, it seems everyone there is suffering from some kind of sorcery. The hunter commander starts cursing out that S-rank hunter. Apparently, I was wrong. He did do this, or rather, he set some kind of trap. He exclaims that scoundrel should have warned them about what they were facing. And the newbie there, a clueless sweetheart. Just then, we see some kind of giant robot, looking a lot like a Transformers Megazord. I take back what I said. He looks just like the Headless Horseman from Sleepy Hollow. And below him, a massive army of skeletons. The system alerts them. Defeat the skeleton commander of Lara, and the time limit? Just 3 hours. The group of hunters starts to panic. After all, they're facing a horde of skeletons. One of the younger hunters nervously asks if he should start handing out the potions. The commander gives the order. Focus, kid! Give them to the highest-ranking members first. The commander quickly asks his sharpshooter, how many archers and mages are in the enemy ranks? The young hunter quickly replies, 30 archers and 2 mages. He's already got his bow drawn and ready. He quickly barks out orders. Sharpshooters prioritize the long-range mobs. Take out those ranged attackers first. Shield bearers, hold the front line. Don't let them break through. Suddenly, a skeletal warrior charges forward, swinging wildly at the hunters, but the captain's shield easily deflects the blow. They're stronger than I thought, the captain thinks, reassessing the situation. Now I understand. Why the orange portals are considered a higher threat level. Still, they're nothing a B-rank tank like me can't handle. He easily holds his ground against the onslaught. But a moment later, he feels a strange magical presence behind him. A chill runs down his spine. He whirls around and finds himself facing a horde of skeletal mages. I thought he got smacked in the back, guys. But actually, he was just admiring the glow of the magic. And he goes on, saying that he needs to get these guys' attention somehow. And the best way to do that is to let out a good yell. The skeleton quickly threatens to unleash his spell, and the blow lands squarely on the captain of the hunters. The little guy, who just got hit, says that was just a scratch. And for good reason. The equipment he's wearing is really expensive. But at this moment, the big guy steps in front of the captain. The little guy is paralyzed. Seeing this monstrosity standing right there, and in the next scene, the creature lands a solid blow on the guy. But luckily, he manages to defend himself. But the shockwave is so powerful that he's thrown against the dungeon wall. The impact is so strong that the poor guy is completely shattered. The young woman is deeply worried about her captain, and the silver-haired guy is just standing there, doing his own thing. I don't know why he's not helping them. Seriously, a black-haired woman, who seems to be quite bossy, steps forward. She tells the young woman that they need to help their captain, and fast. She asks the young woman if maybe it's time to call for backup from the reserve forces. The young woman continues to think. She states that she knows exactly what the reserve forces are for, the reserve, and that they need to help them immediately. But amidst all the chaos and excitement, she suddenly knows what she must do to save her captain. The young woman quickly turns and pleads for His Majesty's help. She desperately begs him to intervene. In this moment of desperation, our hero is completely confused. He's utterly bewildered, and he quickly exclaims, "The king would never get involved in such a petty squabble." he scoffed. He went on, telling her to find another way to earn her honor. I can't believe, he said, that you would even ask me to get involved in a fight against these rotting bones. He added, I can't even stand to watch this fiasco any longer. The young woman, completely bewildered, wondered what in the world he was talking about. Meanwhile, the thin, nervous woman behind her asked her leader what they were gonna do right now. The young woman realized there was no time to waste. The man in front of her clearly had no intention of helping, and from her perspective, it seems his only purpose here is to defeat the boss monster. Finally, the young woman draws her sword and declares that she will handle the boss herself. She barks orders to the others, instructing them to assist their allies. She also directs the hunter captain to follow her lead. With a mighty leap, she charges towards the chaos. From her point of view, she sees a horde of undead skeletons. She uses one as a springboard. Launching herself towards the boss monster, she manages to unleash a powerful downward strike, but the monster effortlessly blocks her attack with ease. Seeing this, the young woman begins to feel the immense pressure of the creature. She continues, thinking she needs to do everything she can to keep him out of the army. But in the next moment, the guy simply scratches his head right in front of the young woman, just to obstruct her view of his incoming attack, which is already on its way. A gigantic punch. The rich young lady has quick reflexes. She even manages to defend herself, but the blow still connects, sending her crashing into the wall of the dojo. She quickly gets back on her feet, but that's just enough time for the creature to close in and deliver another powerful blow. But this reality is working out quite well for her, since this is exactly what she wanted, to separate him from the other soldiers, so she could unleash a full-powered attack on the creature. She mentions that the range of her ability is incredibly wide, which makes it dangerous for her to work in a group. Suddenly, a huge area erupts in flames. The creature writhes in agony, lashing out in every direction. In the midst of the chaos, the young woman prepares for another attack as she attempts to land another powerful blow on the creature. Once again, the monster effortlessly deflects it with its sword. The huntress is knocked to the ground, defeated. Fear grips her as she watches the creature's stance. Its attack style is completely different now. Just as the monster is about to finish her off, our little hero lets out a scream. He exclaims, "This is incredible!" Everyone around him is completely baffled, staring at our hero in disbelief. He continues describing the exotic swordsmanship that the young man wielded the sword with just one hand. With that display, he's certain that the young man must have been a noble knight at some point in his life. Then he apologizes to the creature, admitting he mistook such a great knight for mere skeletal remains. He then shouts to the young man, "Unknown knight, I, the king of Lionheart, grant you the right to challenge me." From the witch on the ground, another bewildered stare. She's just lost. Since the protagonist has some rather peculiar ideas, our hero continues speaking. He declares that there is no need for further bloodshed. And so, he proposes to settle the entire conflict with a single duel between two knights, the two commanders of the Hunters Guild. Witnessing this suggestion, they're completely dumbfounded. Even the little skeleton is baffled, because there's no way this could possibly work. The necromancer takes a moment to consider, but in the end he agrees, and now everyone is even more astonished. The scene unfolds as follows. Everyone is on edge, even the skeleton army of this Dolaran fellow. Uncertainty hangs heavy over the battlefield. Meanwhile, our little protagonist stands calmly and remarks that the knight before him, he's truly an honorable knight. He continues, "As such, I cannot continue to fight with my head bowed." He addresses his enemy. "I'm certain you're aware that my sword has two handguards. This isn't a true battle," he declares. "Oh, if I'm only using one hand." In the next scene, the young woman appears trying to get the hero's attention. "That Dolaran," she says, "he won't die unless you cut off his head." That's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Seeing as his head is already cut off. In response, the hero shrugs. "I don't care." He asks her, "Is that even important?" Her face falls. "Yes, it is." She stares at him in disbelief, lost in thought. She wonders how on earth is he going to beat Dulan without decapitating him. And in the meantime, while the young hero and the young lady are still discussing the details, Dulan is already handing over his head to one of his skeletal servants. His skeletal servant, that is. And so, the two knights are ready for combat. The dark-skinned knight begins to introduce himself, announcing that he is the first knight of the goddess of light and justice, and the Archduke of Draconia and King of Leonheart. He declares that he is challenging this honorable knight to a duel. And with that, the fight begins. The knight charges full force at our hero and prepares to unleash his most powerful blow. In the next moment, we see a flash of light caused by the shockwave of two powerful weapons colliding. Completely shocked. From our hero's perspective, he's just standing there zen-like, totally calm, as if nothing's happening, in a graceful stance. He effortlessly holds the colossal sword. The silver-haired young man moves with incredible skill, swiftly incapacitating the soldier. It's all over for him. If this were a real fight to the death, the silver-haired youth quickly mentions that this is the first time he's been bested in combat, but the determined knight refuses to give up. He sets up another move and launches another attack at our hero. Supervisor Harry, watching this, is terrified, and he continues, thinking there's no way he can block an attack coming from that trajectory. But from our hero's perspective, he just keeps thinking to himself, and he comments to the knight, "Your steps are incredibly light," as if by magic. The knight completely loses his balance and falls to the ground. The other hunters, rank B and below, are completely baffled. They think the guy simply tripped and fell, but the young girl saw everything. Every single detail, and she exclaims, "That was incredible." The captain of the hunters goes on to say that Harry was the only one who truly understood what just happened. During this battle, the young woman still thought our hero had shifted the balance of his guard's weight the moment the attack touched his blade. But more than that, he managed to make a crosscut. She continues, marveling at the skill, saying that no one would even attempt such a maneuver. And so, once again, the protector brings his sword close to a point in the knight's hospital, and he declares that this was his second defeat. He quickly tells the knight, Dalaran, to get into position. A long time passes. He mentions that it's been a long time since he's been treated like a true knight properly and was challenged to a duel. And in that duel, fighting against the Lion King Heart, it was as if he had broken free from his curse. But unfortunately, that was just a trick to avoid the difficult situation. Difficult indeed. And so the knight Dalaran, looking at our hero, could see a true, honorable knight before him, a dignified posture, and the gaze of a veteran who had experienced countless battles, and his eyes shone with a burning desire for honor and excellence. And there, the protector stood, blocking and countering countless blows, moves that no one had ever seen twice, since that individual never returned to tell the tale. Once again, the little prodigy breaks through the knight's defenses. He defeats him for the third time. For the third time! The necromancer knight states that the person before him is the pinnacle of an honorable knight, and yet he asks the profound being if, by chance, he wishes to continue the duel. The necromancer Dolan replies, "I will not use my necromantic powers. I want to fight you, this man, as many times as I can, as a knight alone, waging this battle properly, in a noble fashion, without necromancy, only with his blades against him." The necromancer begins to remember his life, back when he was human. He remembers the honorable things he used to do, his duels, his achievements, all in the name of honor. And there, once again, the protagonist defeats the creature for the 10th time. The silver-haired hero continues, mentioning that his scheme is becoming much more precise. And surely, that's because he's unlocked the memories of his past life. His past life! And now, the necromancer boy, exuding newfound confidence, continues to think to himself, mentioning that the protagonist has given him back his knightly honor. Once again, the dark-haired man asked if he wanted to continue this duel. But then, Lohan's necromancer, he arrived, approaching the man holding his severed head. As he lifted it and placed it back on his shoulders, he wondered how long he had been carrying out these meaningless massacres, and for how long he had continued fighting without honor. He pondered if he could end his cursed journey like this, there would be no greater joy. And it was in this pose that he accepted his end with honor at the hands of King Leonhart. The dark-haired man adds that he was astonished for restoring his true honor, and because of that, he says he'll pray for him. He believes if there is a God in whom he can believe, he hopes this God will grant his soul peace. But if there isn't, he prays that the goddesses. I even called up to the garden, and the protector mentions that he hopes to meet him someday in the god's banquet hall, and so our hero calls out for light. His divine energy begins to purify the entire area. The abyssal armor begins to crumble, and the human trapped inside begins to emerge. The profane being is once again transformed into an honored knight. And so, time passes. Everyone is finally out of the dungeon. It seems they've even finished everything there. The fighting is over, and everyone's just relaxing, ready to go home. Both the guild captain and the manager, Hira, or maybe it was Harry, something like that, still can't believe what happened. About what happened in the tunnel. They kept wondering about the light that appeared out of nowhere. The young woman even mentioned that he had said something about, "Let there be light." The captain adds that she must be right, and it must be the divine power of Broda Porta's doing. That must be it. He thinks that's why the undead's body vanished. Then the young woman, feeling down, says that Brota should have used that power sooner. Then our hero speaks up, saying that if he had done that, then that honorable knight would have met his end as a mindless undead creature. He goes on to say that a knight lives by his honor, and honor comes from actions, and actions come from willpower. So you lazy bones, sitting around in your messy room, go do something. Go for a run. Read a book. Don't be dishonorable. You disgrace! Just kidding, man. Just kidding. But hit that like button if you haven't liked the video yet. You're a coward. You're a total coward if you haven't liked it by now. All right, coward. Back to the story. The little guy was saying that Doolin got what he deserved, and me as a noble knight. But anyway, he says it's time to gather some intel. The young woman looks confused, since she didn't think he was interested in such things. And in response, he tells her, where there's a battle, there's valuable information. Finders keepers, he adds with a wink. Arriving at the discovered treasures, they see a large sword, or perhaps a halberd, and a crystal of some sort emanating a strange light. The captain, examining the loot, is impressed. He can sense a powerful magical energy radiating from these objects. The young woman points out that among the treasures, there's a long sword and what looks like the cloak of Tulahan. But in the midst of all this, she says, there's this magical sphere, pulsating with immense energy. He quickly replies that it's worthless junk and quickly destroys it. The poor captain, witnessing this, is in utter disbelief. He had just claimed the artifact would be worth a fortune. And so, all the other hunters are equally stunned by what the protagonist has just done. Dexteroy mentions that this type of item only brings chaos to the world. In the end, the results of the mission are they retrieve the dollar cape, his sword, and some mana stones. As for the pearl the protagonist broke, it's completely useless. Now, in the previous chapter, our protagonist preserved in formaldehyde, since the guy's 300 years old, and still looks like the lion from Resident Evil 2 Remake, but a really cute baby version, mind you. Our hero had just escaped his own world, or rather his planet. After a gruesome war against demons, he was the sole survivor. Now being pulled towards planet Earth, he showed those Earthlings the power of his faith. He inspected crops contaminated by a demonic plague and proved his knightly honor by dueling a necromancer dude. He was always victorious, maintaining his royal swagger. Don't forget to leave a comment, folks, because my channel, I don't know why it doesn't have that like button yet. Yeah, so leave a comment to help the channel out. In the next chapter, we see the young girl again, and she looks a bit tired, not to mention she's bringing you know who, a feast. You know, him. The poor girl is still under the impression that it's only been 4 days since the lion came to this land. She says it hasn't been long, but so much has happened, and the poor thing, she's exhausted. She mentions there was a small issue at first, because of taxes, and she vividly remembers the guy, saying, how dare she demand taxes from the king of another nation? She even tried to smooth things over by suggesting that he could pay just with some mana stones. And our hero's response? Nothing less than one of his trademark crazy lines. A king, he declares, doesn't count his coins. He then asks her why they're even discussing this. This is something that should be handled by someone lower down the chain of command. Poor Harry is just left there with this utterly dumbfounded look. Oh, the poor girl. Another thing. They've suddenly gained a ton of followers, all thanks to the introduction of divine power to the land. And of course, most of them are old folks just 1 foot in the grave. Those crazy old geezers, all eager to pay their tithes, man. And our hero's tithe is pretty simple, right? 19 trillion. Basically, these old folks are gonna have to cough up 90% of their entire harvest as a tithe. And he continues with a straight face, asking what they think of this incredibly generous offer. The poor old man, his face crumpled with worry, tells the young punk that taxes and the cost of living are already sky high, and now they want 90% of his harvest? Man, oh man, that's just unreasonable. In response, the teacher says that as a follower of the goddess, he shouldn't worry about going hungry, because their well-being is her utmost concern. Things like limitations and other details, I will be handled by your guild. The young woman continues explaining that, regarding the blessed rice, it has an insanely high market value. The old men are all ears, listening intently. Basically, 150 million onis for every 80 kilograms of rice. The old men are stunned. That much for just a single bag of rice. So 90% is nothing, since they'll already be making a huge profit. Overjoyed, the old men start praising and saying, "Praise God!" Oh, glory. But the poor young woman adds that the biggest problem in all of this was the protagonist's house. the first house she took him to, and he already started complaining about everything there, mentioning that they're in the middle of a battlefield. A war is imminent. Then a little bit of, I guess, is that he's going to stay in a house with absolutely no artwork. He's a very unique guy, this protagonist of ours. The lion furiously demanded a luxurious bed, servants at his beck and call, and a piece of art he could admire at any moment. And poor Harry had to search for 5-star hotels until 2 in the morning just to rent a suite for this guy. The poor girl was exhausted, begging him to just sleep there, man, because he was being too much. She even promised she'd get him a painting, or maybe a simple quartz ceramic piece, just sitting there for him to admire meaninglessly. And what brings the story back to the present, once again, is as follows. The poor girl was already there, calling for Leonhardt. She continues asking him if, by chance, he's feeling all right, addressing him as Your Majesty. Our hero confirms that he is. She then tells him it's time for his breakfast. Lost in thought, Leonhardt asks the young girl if she's eaten yet. Flustered, she replies that she hasn't. In response, Leonhardt tells her she should eat when she has the chance. He adds that she shouldn't skip meals. The young girl's reaction is priceless. Gentlemen, and she just confirms, doesn't she? The little cutie. And in this moment, we get a glimpse of our hero's feast. And gentlemen, it's a lot of food, but I seem to have blurry vision when it comes to the other dishes. All I can focus on is this one right here. Man, he was living the dream with that meal. Look at that spread. She's already getting all excited. And she's teaching me that everything there looks absolutely delicious. She's daydreaming about eating a sandwich, or something like that later. And so, in the next scene, our main character tells her to sit beside him. Harry's already blushing like crazy. She's just sitting there, wondering if he's going to share his food with her. She sits down at the table, plate and silverware ready. The little guy immediately asks, "What in the world is she doing here?" The young girl, once again, is completely clueless. What does he want now? She wonders. Our hero repeats himself, asking her why she's sitting there, instead of making sure the ribs she brought are safe for him to eat. With a sweet, innocent expression, the young girl says, "I thought you were going to share your food with me." Renokuru stares at her with a dumbfounded look. "In what kind of country?" he scoffs. "Do royalty and commoners eat together? Oh, you poor naive thing," he thinks to himself. And so, time passes by, and we can see a gigantic building. Meanwhile, we also see a luxurious car, and it looks like someone inside is making an announcement. She continues, saying that the Hunters Association has decided to increase financial support for housing assistance. Like, what's it called again? My house, my life, something like that. The guy then starts speaking in a deep voice. "My fellow citizens, it won't be as good as a palace, but it will guarantee." He pauses. But it will guarantee that people will be comfortable. That's what he said. The 9 fingers. And there, inside the car, sat our protagonist. He remarks on how considerate this all is. Our hero continues saying he can't be too demanding as a guest. So, he decides to leave certain matters in someone else's capable hands. And we know exactly who that is, young Harry. Once again, she brings up the topic of the tributes that will come from the spoils taken from the latest portal. Our protagonist tells her to handle it, since he doesn't care much about it. But then he mentions that he did take a liking to a certain cloak, so she tosses him the cloak and tells him she'll divide up the rest.
Finally, they arrive at a massive building.
She explains that this building is the Hunters Association headquarters. She goes on to list the building's many advantages. And blah, blah, blah. He goes on about how this place isn't so bad. Then he asks Her Majesty what she thinks about all this. Meanwhile, he's just lost in thought. He stares at a crazy-looking ornament and wonders, what in the world is that? Seriously, what is that thing? It's like someone inside the building. He easily recognizes the young woman, Harry, calling her manager, assistant at the Hunters Association. The young woman is visibly uncomfortable. She knows this information should be confidential. And so, she quickly asks, "Who is this person who knows so much about me?" The man, with a rather smug look, continues saying that it's all a big coincidence. He explains that he's from the Don Young Group, the director of Food of the Future, from Don Young Park, John Shalin. Harry tries to remain neutral, maintaining a surprised expression. The Don Young Group. She thinks to herself, that ordinary group? They are one of the 3 largest corporations, monopolists who control the nation's resources. And the head of one of these groups is standing right there, right in front of them. And it looks like we're already getting a glimpse of this creep's true intentions. He continues, addressing our hero, and asks him if he's the famous survivor. The young girl is already listening intently, knowing exactly what this creep is after. With our hero, the jerk goes on, saying it's a pleasure to meet the Dragon Lion, the Lionheart hero. He extends his hand to our hero, but we know our protagonist isn't your average guy. He simply stares back at him with a look of disdain and says that he's just a merchant and shaking a king's hand. And so time passes. she continues, explaining that the association will provide this housing for him for a whole year. She says the association will take care of the rent and all the bills, so he can just relax and enjoy himself without worrying about a thing. Our little protagonist, still taking it all in, learns there's even room service. Mate, he can have anything he wants. As the tension eases, he reflects on everything. What a relief this all is. His mind wanders back to the earlier events. He remembers that information about the survivors is top secret. But just then, a big shot shows up, about to poach the survivor from their guild. She thinks to herself that his eccentric behavior was actually perfect, since it's a relief that he didn't give the director of that huge hunter corporation the time of day. And in the next scene, the young woman asks the protagonist why the hunter director came to see him. The protagonist replies that it's pretty obvious. Since he's a businessman, he was clearly after profit. The young woman asks him if he's talking about the rice. And so the young woman continues to think that due to the urgency of the situation, the flow of information wasn't very good. Because in the middle of all that chaos, the streamer recorded the entire scene, and the association asked him to delete the video. And even though they made him delete it, it seems that goofball posted it again. But one thing's for sure, folks. We all know what happens when the dish lands in that spot, right? In that, how can I put this? Farm. There were already guys from another organization there, so that was all for nothing, man. And if I remember correctly, that S-rank hunter was from the same organization as that director, who just showed up. So, I don't know. Fool's gold. We wouldn't know. Here's what happened. Someone was watching a video of our hero, watching him perform his unique vocal exercises, and that someone was the director of a powerful organization, a huge, influential organization. He was cursing our hero, calling him every name under the sun. Meanwhile, this guy keeps questioning the scientist. He wants to know if he's absolutely certain about the effects of that rice. Are the effects real? The scientist insists that it's all real, and then some. The director keeps pressing, asking if he's tested these effects on humans. They need some kind of guarantee, he says. And just then, a young woman walks in. She tells the director that to get more information about the rice, they've learned the location of the rice field. And the most impressive thing about all of this is that a dog that was there on the verge of collapse simply recovered out of nowhere, and people with chronic inflammation or sinus infections felt better immediately after eating the rice. And so, all kinds of illnesses in the village, whether mild or severe, were cured after just one spoonful of that magnificent rice. Magnificent. And so, she mentions that because of this, the effects have basically been proven. The little director with that evil look on his face, he just sits there thinking that truly, this artifact works incredibly well. He thinks about what happened to him earlier. If it weren't for that darned psychopath, the poor guy was completely offended at being called a playboy, and to add insult to injury, being dismissed as a mere merchant. The young woman asks her boss if they should intervene in this matter, since the protagonist's power is limitless. In response, he says he'll meet with the protagonist again. With the hero, he stands up furiously and exclaims, "How dare that peasant insult me like that? How dare that lowlife insult me so?" He continues ranting. He thinks he's so much better than me, all because of his precious little rice. He rages on, saying that the protagonist has messed with the wrong person. The lowlife practically has a stroke right then and there, one side of his face grinning, the other drooping. He goes on vowing to utterly dominate the protagonist, to teach him a lesson he won't soon forget. After returning to Earth, our protagonist sets 3 goals for himself. The first, to spread faith in divinity. He points out that there are plenty of gods and followers on Earth, but what truly matters is divine power, and that's nowhere to be found. A true God should embrace faith and bless the world, but instead, humanity is suffering, and the planet is becoming more and more polluted. So, to wield a new divine power, a new faith must be established. Therefore, more people need to believe in this new divinity. His second goal is to reform the Knights Templar. The Templars, he explains, that in this world, there isn't a warrior organization that wields divine power. And if the guardian of the Holy Grail, the King of Lionheart, is considered a demigod, then his Templar Knights would be something like saints. They are God's knights who wield divine power to bring terror to the wicked, and ultimately annihilate all the evil that thrives in this land. To reclaim divine power and raise the Templar Knights, that is your task. He mentions there's a reason for spreading this faith. It's more than just maintaining balance. In order within the Pantheon to raise the Templar Knights, perhaps that's expecting too much. He thinks it's odd that the Templar Knights would be needed in a place like this, but even so, he decides it's not that important. All he needs to do is fulfill his duty. Just then, someone gets his attention. It seems to be a young woman named Harry. She explained that someone has officially requested His presence. Me, he wonders. He thinks for a moment, then decides there's no reason not to meet with whoever submitted a formal request. Suddenly 3 people appear. He can't quite make out who they are, but looking closer at the man in front, he thinks he might be the director of the Hunters Association. I've forgotten his name, John or something like that. He continues thanking our protagonist for making this meeting possible, and our hero is there, lost in thought. He calmly stares at the little brat, analyzing every detail of really. And so, the commoner continues to ponder. If it's for the good of his business, he can bow his head to this weirdo, this idiot in front of him. But he keeps talking to the protagonist, saying he brought a small gift. And then we see a kind of iron briefcase. It's really, really strange. He practically begs our little hero to accept his present. But in reality, he's thinking that the common-born protagonist will be truly surprised. When he sees what's inside, he exclaims that it's a high-ranking luxury item, the kind a lowlife could only dream of, and there's no going back. Once he's experienced what he's about to see, the commoner, with his devilish look, continues to think the protagonist will beg him to be his manager. Our hero then speaks up, acknowledging the effort made. He says he'll accept the little twerp's offer. The kid even puts on a good guy face. But the protagonist's words have deeply wounded his pride. He fumes, wondering what this punk's attitude is all about. And it's as if he's doing him a favor by accepting the gift. But the twerp recovers and tells the protagonist to take a look inside his briefcase. He adds, "I'm sure you'll enjoy what's inside." The young master, still striking his confident pose, tells the servant, "You'll need to teach them proper etiquette." He then gestures for the young woman to open the briefcase. The moment she touches it, it springs open in a rather unusual way. And when Harry lays eyes on the contents inside the briefcase, she recognizes them as top-tier equipment. The young master continues, explaining that the protagonist can choose any of these items, whichever he pleases. The young woman, realizing these are all unique, high-ranking items, is completely stunned. How could the Dawn Young organization is over there handing out these artifacts, which are incredibly expensive? In response, an official confirms this, adding that these items are the cream of the crop, the absolute best of the best, top-tier unique rank items. Gabriel continues, explaining to the protagonist that he's heard the protagonist is now working as a hunter, so these artifacts will be immensely helpful on his journey, a great aid in his adventures. The young woman pauses, thinking it over. She's clearly confused. Why would someone just give away these unique rank weapons to his guild? After all, these weapons are the kind of equipment that's priceless beyond anything money can buy. These artifacts are incredibly unique and rare. Harry mentions that she was able to get a good look at them only in YouTube videos. Our hero responds to Rissa with a simple question. He asks, "Where exactly am I supposed to use such low-level weapons?" Gabriel is stunned into disbelief. He laughs and looks at our hero, asking, "Low-level? What do you mean?" "Level, and let me tell you, I really feel sorry for this young lady." "Man, are you crazy? It's one outrageous thing after another." But from our hero's perspective, he states that it's impossible to make a good weapon without star aura and a divine blessing. And so the young man asks the other guy, "Do you only use those weapons for hunting beasts?" But from the perspective of the other Hunters Guild director, he's completely lost. He wonders to himself, what in the world is this commoner talking about? He even considers if perhaps this guy wants them to dry his sword, like a chili pepper drying in the sun, left out there to bake in the heat. And then he takes the artifact to be blessed by a priest. If that's what he's after, he mutters. In the next moment, the little guy asks if the merchant is trying to rip him off, with his shop locked up tight. The shopkeeper thinks it's all a big misunderstanding, but Lionheart is feeling generous. He agrees with the little guy, saying that merchants are obligated to show their wares wherever they go. Meanwhile, the little guy summons his sword from his otherworldly space. He admits the sword he brought is only good for slaughtering chickens and cows, but he'll give it a shot. He'll give this little relic a chance. And get this, gentlemen, our protagonist is picking up a very old sword. It's not even the one he usually uses. It's his oldest one. The reactions in this place are always the same. The guy just watches this claim from the protagonist. It makes him angry, furious, and also confused. And in this moment, from the guy's perspective, he gets that demonic look in his eyes. He thinks the protagonist is underestimating his weapons, and now he's fallen into a trap. He continues to question the protagonist, saying he'd really like to see just how effective that sword is compared to his own. And in the next scene, he's already caught the attention of Round Fang. She wonders if she could test one of her swords to, hire the blacksmith by commissioning a sword from him. She'd been waiting for an opportunity like this, a chance to get her hands on a one-of-a-kind relic. She practically vibrates with excitement. She glances over at the hero and catches the look of refusal on his face. Undeterred, she goes ahead and picks a sword that catches her eye. She announces that this particular artifact
is a weapon she's admired for 4 long years.
It's the legendary sword crafted by Master Park Shin-choi, Dawnbreaker. The moment she unsheathes the blade, she can feel its power emanating from the gleaming metal. A little intimidated, she asks His Majesty once more if she can really use this artifact on his little sword. In response to this, the little guy simply asks why she would need permission to swing around a toy like that. And so the young girl gets ready. She starts to imbue her hunter's magic into the sword. And the moment she takes a swing to deliver a blow, a powerful one, it's utterly devastating against the protagonist's sword. But in the next moment, one of the swords shatters in half. And of course, it's the little guy's artifact. Darn it, I forgot his name again. And the protagonist's old weapon is there without a scratch. Now he needs to send his artifact back to its alternate dimension. He adds that all of this is much worse than he initially thought. And now he realizes that it's all been a waste of time. The protagonist continues, saying he'll shorten the time of the meeting. Now the merchant only has 3 minutes. Gabriel, realizing the mess he's made, and still not understanding how his artifacts are so ridiculously inferior compared to the protagonist's, is once again in disbelief. He quickly adds that he'd like to patent the grain of rice. The protagonist pretends to be clueless, as if he doesn't understand what's being said. And the sly protagonist continues, saying that they'll pay for everything. He adds that according to his calculations, they say this rice is worth around 180 billion won. But he's thinking to himself, that's ridiculously low. It's obviously worth way more than that. A single grain that can cure even cancer couldn't possibly be worth so little. He thinks the old man is a complete idiot. Clearly, he has no idea what 180 billion won even means. He'll lose his mind, he thinks, when he explains just how much money that actually is. The old man continues, oblivious, and asks, are you saying you want to buy some of the divine rice with money? Seeing our hero's reaction, the old man is sure he's finally caught him. That's right, he says. That's exactly it. He goes on, it's quite obvious, really. He'll have to sign a contract, stating that John's group will have a monopoly on everything. He adds that if the hero wants, he can haggle a bit on the price. But before the little goat man finishes, the hero calls him an imbecile merchant. He continues ranting furiously, demanding to know how dare he insult his divinity. In response to this, the goat men completely lose their composure. Alternative, the goat men start panicking. Seeing the look on the hero's face, the merchant can only think one thing. He's going to die. Meanwhile, the protector calls the hero stupid. He just taught him that he's confessed his sins. And with that, they all begin to prostrate themselves before His Majesty. They continue to cry there, whimpering and releasing waste from all over their bodies. He keeps saying that he really doesn't know where he went wrong. In response to this, the little noble calls them ignorant and uncivilized. He manages to be quite condescending. He goes on to explain that the Kalita he was talking about was created by the blessed earth of the beloved goddess Tamara, and says that she gave this blessing as a reward to the farmers who work hard in the fields, toiling away under the sun. He adds that this isn't something that can be bought with money. All it takes is a grateful heart and faith as payment. And he mentions that since that's the case, he's a low-life creature, only interested in profit and deceiving others. He decides to question the punk, who's already practically drooling snot. He asks him what he plans to do with the divine products of a goddess, in whom he clearly doesn't believe. Some time passes. Later on, Harry asks the protagonist if it's okay to let those thugs just walk away like that. She continues, telling him she knows he only sees the punk as a simple merchant, but that he still holds a lot of influence in this world. And so, Ronald continues, saying there's no need to worry about such things. He adds that he's not someone who is affected by something as common as resonance. And so the protector asks if the thing he requested is ready. In response, the young woman mentions that the association just called. She asks our hero if he's planning on taking a test as well. She goes on to say that the test he'll be taking will certainly be very easy, since he's so powerful. The protector scoffs, calling it absurd. He questions the young woman, incredulous. A king taking a trivial test? And Harry, once again confused, asks His Majesty, so what exactly are you going to do at this hunter's test? In response, he says he's looking for capable soldiers, but in reality, he's the one who will be testing them. The young woman insists it's impossible. In response, the silver-haired man tells her to make it possible. She immediately bursts into tears. Time passes. We find ourselves at the Hunters Association, a grand and luxurious building. The young men introduce themselves. They're surprised to see each other again after a whole year. And the character who just showed up, that's this guy right here. I don't know if he'll remain a minor character for long. Well, we'll see. He's a D-rank hunter. His name is Golden Song. Gabriel wishes him luck and says he's definitely there to do the retest. of the Hunters Association. The background characters are chatting nervously. One of them asks another, "Do you think you'll rank up this time?" In response, the kid in the white shirt says, "I'm going to give it my all." The kid continues thinking to himself, "Even those without talent can reach rank C at least. But I've been stuck at rank D for 10 years. An older man next to him chimes in, "That kid's incredibly dedicated and hardworking." He adds confidently, "I bet he'll become a true ace in no time." "I wonder who he is," someone says. The old man continues, "Unlike some others, you could even call it manual labor. But I'm on a mining team. It's not bad at all." The other man agrees. He mentions he's been there for 10 long years. The younger man says he wants to try one more time. He's confident he'll finally get his promotion. He thinks about all the hardships he's endured, the grueling work, the meager pay, and the interest on some loan he took out. He can't give up now, he tells himself. He's doing all of this for his family. He needs to reach rank C, at the very least, to finally stop being a burden, to stop being dead weight. In the next scene, the old man says, "Looks like we've got a foreigner over there." The kid is completely baffled. He keeps arguing, wondering if the foreigner might be European. The other kids chime in, saying our hero looks like he could be royalty. So then the kid tries to get our hero's attention, calling out, "Hey boy." He even throws in a, "How are you, dude?" Our hero just thinks for a moment. Then he says to the kid, "Who do you think you're talking to?" "Playboy." That's exactly what he says. Now the old man is completely dumbfounded. "Look at the bystander there." Totally shocked by our hero's response. The old man goes up to the bystander and says, "Looks like he learned a different kind of Korean." And in the next scene, the main character is just observing the extra. The guy starts to get the chills. The old man asks a question. He asks if he's perhaps losing his mind. From the extra's perspective, he's completely bewildered by what's happening. He says he can't breathe, and it feels like something is crushing him. But just then, a staff member from the Hunters Association calls out to the extra. He says he's on his way to the interview, and our protagonist is just there in his own world, observing the potential knight candidates. He continues, saying there's only one something here, but he's being awfully vague about it. Could he be interested in this kid? We'll just have to wait and see. He thinks to himself that he didn't come here looking for strong people. But even so, he remarks that there doesn't seem to be anyone here with the potential to be a good soldier. He sighs, a little disappointed. "What a shame," he mutters. Our hero speaks up. First of all, he says, the people who usually show up for these tests are low-ranking hunters, or those who recently awakened their abilities. Just then, someone calls out our hero's number. He's number 77. Dragon Lion Arts, the voice booms. Our hero is still feeling discouraged. He can't help but think that he shouldn't expect much from these people. He makes his way to room 9. The moment he steps inside, he's confronted by a strange machine. A man approaches, introducing himself and addressing our hero by the name on his file, but our hero isn't having it. He immediately demands to be addressed as Your Majesty. He even calls the man a playboy. The man is taken aback, a shiver running down his spine. He quickly corrects himself, addressing our hero as Your Majesty. He then instructs our hero to place his hand on the measuring device for the test. Our hero eyes the contraption. He pauses, thinking, and then calls the man an idiot. The man continues, completely unfazed, questioning how a mere playboy dares to question the honor of a knight. Our hero retorts that only knights, honorable knights, and only the gods can judge a knight's honor. But the platinum-haired boy continues shouting and declares that they aren't the ones conducting the test, only this device in front of him. In response, the little noble shouts even louder and demands to know how a mere relic dares to try and test the honor of a knight. The boy continues to radiate an unsettling aura. The platinum-haired boy thinks to himself, "What in the world is this crazy guy doing here?" Then the platinum-haired boy states that he's looking for capable soldiers. He continues, saying that unfortunately, even the judges here are dreadful. The platinum-haired boy adds that he hasn't liked anyone here and asks the nobleman, "What's the next test?" Someone asks. Just then, an old man nearby announces the next test involves a portal. He gestures ahead. The silver-haired man speaks up, inviting himself along. True skill, he declares, is only revealed through practical training and real-world situations. He adds, "I'll have a closer look myself." As they approach the portal, a breathtakingly beautiful landscape unfolds before them. It looks like a lush, vibrant forest. Someone asks, "Is anyone feeling dizzy or anything like that?" He explains, "Some people experience nausea when traveling through portals. For those unfamiliar with portal travel," he continues, "they typically close automatically. But there are a few exceptions, portals that they keep open. And this portal here is one of them, located in Seoul. The instructor continues shouting there, telling them to follow him. And the eager beaver who wants a promotion. He mentions that this year's evaluation isn't much different from previous years. He remains determined, and then says he needs to do well to get better results. One of the other participants mentions how incredible the inside of a portal is. A young woman looking at her phone tells the kid that this place is really popular, and the kid next to her tells the young woman. She quickly shuts off her phone. The D-rank hunter, watching the whole scene unfold, realizes he's dealing with a couple of rookies. Meanwhile, the old man beside them is beaming. He comments on how delicious the ale is. The D-rank hunter, observing the group, thinks to himself that everyone here seems to be either D or C rank, and what's more, there's that foreigner he saw earlier at the reception desk. Judging by the protagonist's youthful face, he figures he must be a newbie too. The young man glances at the protagonist and wonders if this whole thing is going to end well. Meanwhile, the others are introducing themselves before they can decide at least their positions on the battlefield. And this is God Ashung. He's thinking that this is his 10th year as a hunter, and he's a warrior. He's thinking that his main position is a dealer. I'm not sure what that is, man. Apparently, it's a short-range damage dealer. Something like that. Short-range damage. Close range. You know. And then this guy shows up. Shintaro. He mentions that he just awakened this same year. And he says he uses a spear and shield. And at his side is this young lady. He mentions she's his sister. And her name is Shinnayon. She mentions that her main weapons are daggers. But lately, she's been practicing with a bow and arrow. The poor knight watching this display realizes things are looking pretty grim. These recruits are so green. They haven't even figured out the basics of how to use their weapons. He asks the newbies if they've even set foot in the training grounds yet. They puff out their chests and proudly declare that they've been training for 3 whole months. Oh boy, the knight thinks. This is bad. And so the knight turns to the old man and asks him about his race. The old man, looking weary, says that he's 15 years old. And his name is Gandatai. The old man continues explaining that his primary weapon, it's the gauntlet. The poor fellow continues, saying he awakened a long time ago, but he was recently fired from his job. And the knight, realizing this, becomes even more panicked. Finally, he turns to our hero and asks if he's a foreigner. He wonders if he speaks Korean, perhaps. He continues pondering, hand on his chin. Then he declares that he won't fight. The knight is completely baffled. Why is he even here? Our hero continues, explaining that he can't use his sword meant for slaying dragons to slaughter chickens. The knight is incredulous. He asks where in the world he learned to speak like that. Like this, the Hunters Association instructor explains that for this test, they only need to hunt 50 kobolds. He goes on to say that sometimes a few goblins might show up on the battlefield. And if he thinks things are getting out of hand, he'll step in and help them out. But if that happens, the mission will end early. With that in mind, they can relax and not worry too much. They should just focus on showing off their skills as much as possible. And so the young hopefuls continue walking, venturing deeper into the forest. Our poor knight is left wondering if everything is going to be all right. After all, his group seems pretty hopeless. He keeps remembering, just a moment ago, he had just asked our hero if by chance he hadn't brought any weapons with him. And shortly after, the young woman even offered him a bow. Once again, our protagonist, with his dramatic flair, exclaimed, "How could they expect me, the king, to use a bow and arrow?" Seeing his reaction, the young woman simply said, "You can return it after the mission." But then our hero flew into a rage and threw the bow to the ground. He continued, declaring that a knight doesn't use long-range weapons, like a coward. And the poor young woman worried about her bow. Oh boy. Our hero this is too much, man. Everyone around him is completely speechless, and we're back in the present. The little rascal is still thinking that maybe this test speaks volumes. He keeps telling everyone that he knows a specific place, and he tries to convince everyone to go hunting where he knows. And since he's the guy with the most experience, in this test, everyone ends up following their self-proclaimed leader. The background characters even mention that he had found a village back there in the terrain. But in response to that, the white-haired guy mentions it's not a good idea for them to go to the village with such a small group. And the problem is, it's almost impossible to find a way out. Once they're surrounded by kobolds, his strategy is to hunt down the kobolds living in the caves. His plan is incredibly simple. They'll set fire to the grass and leaves nearby to force the smoke into the cave. That way they can easily wipe out the kobolds trapped inside. In response, the other soldiers in the back are overjoyed by the knight's knowledge. He, on the other hand, is embarrassed, he thinks to himself, that this isn't something to be proud of. He recalls how he studied every tutorial and guide, every cheesy tactic, dreaming of the day he'd step into a high-ranking portal. So high-ranking, but unfortunately, after all this time, after so much effort, He's only managed to access D-rank portals. Undeterred, he continues on, determined to rise through the ranks. He needs to increase his rank, no matter the cost. Just then, one of the background characters spots something. A lone kobold! But on closer inspection, there are more like 4 of them. In the next moment, the kobold group launches a full-on attack against the knight's party. She barks orders at the young squire, telling him to use his shield and block the creature's attacks. Block their attacks! As the big dog lunges at the kobolds, barking ferociously, he manages to snatch a hefty loaf of bread in his mouth. He looks like he just won the lottery. Seeing this, the squire, he can see plain as day how dumb these creatures are. He thinks to himself, this is going to be easy. Blocking them will be a piece of cake if they only charge in a straight line. But just then, the young girl shouts to the squire, there's one right in front of you. It's coming in fast. Instead of the usual looking forward, the squire simply turns around. I swear I saw that girl's lips move. He thinks, bewildered. And in that moment, the creature tackles him. He's pinned down, in a rather precarious position. But in the next instant, the other guy jumps in to help. With a swift strike, he plunges his sword into the monster's throat. And just like that, one of the soldiers warns them, don't let your guard down. These creatures may be weak, but they're incredibly fast. Moments later, the young girl manages to take down 2 of them with a single blow. A precise shot right in the head with her arrows. And gentlemen, the old man's no slouch either. He's a real boxer, just knocked out a kobold with a powerful punch. And by my count, that's 5 kobolds down for the count. 5 or 6, man. That's a lot. The young soldier beams with pride. Time passes. He continues congratulating everyone for their excellent work. And the poor squire, he continues, looking dejected, admitting he made a mistake. On the battlefield? But the young soldier brushes it off, saying it's all because it was his first time in this kind of test. And after all that excitement, the young knight continues to think. He recalls how nervous he was at the beginning, but this group doesn't seem so bad to him now. Well, except for one person, our hero who just stood there watching. He walks right up to the protagonist and demands to know from Leto why he didn't do anything while they were fighting. The examiner, seeing the commotion, tries to calm things down, assuring them he'll take into account that the protagonist did nothing during the final evaluation. And with that, the issue is dropped. But many of them are quite irritated, so they decide to venture deeper into the forest. With Bolt leading the way, the goats quickly scurry along carrying armfuls of straw. It seems they've already found a cave with Bolt's help. Following the knight's orders, he tells them to get ready and set the straw ablaze right at the mouth of the cave. They start to arrange everything. He stands there, performing his fire-starting ritual, and then our hero appears. He asks the knight if he really thinks this is the best way to go about this. The little goat, seeing this challenge to authority, gets all riled up. And on top of that, he can't even understand our hero's question. After all, he's the only one who hasn't lifted a finger since this whole thing started. And so, the little guy repeats himself once again. Clearly annoyed now, he hates having to repeat himself. He reminds the brat that he asked if this was the best he could do. In response, the little punk continues saying he's already used this method 3 times, and it worked every single time. The protector replies that he understands. It's a test based on experience after all. But, he counters, how can he rely on experience when he has so little? This sends the punk into a rage. Experience my ass, he shouts. This little twerp's practically pickled in formaldehyde. He looks way too, say, an 18-year-old kid. And so, the young knight tells everyone to gather at the mouth of the cave. The kobolds will be emerging any second now. With that said, all the hunters are ready. Some are armed with spears and shields.
The old man
holds a stone in one hand and wears his fighting gauntlets on the other. The young soldier isn't much different. He's also going with a good old rock. Steady now, lad! Without much further ado, kobolds start pouring out, one after another. The young archer starts the show, loosing her deadly projectiles. But the rock slingers are also having a field day. The group's surprise attack is going exactly as planned. The little soldier continues on, happy as can be. He confidently declares that his method wasn't wrong, and so they keep firing their projectiles at full force. They think to themselves, if we can wipe out a bunch of these small fry, and maybe even take down some of the plainer gnomes, that would mean... But just then, a deafening screech cuts through the air. The soldier seems to recognize the sound all too well. That's a gnome, Captain! He exclaims, his voice filled with dread. Panic sets in, because the gnome captain is the boss of the SIO station portal, and this creature is definitely above rank C. For them, it's an incredibly tough opponent. Realizing just how unlucky he is, the poor soldier trembles with fear. Next, the monster roars in a desperate rage, and the young girl over there is already terrified. Oh my gosh. The knight is already coming up with a plan. He mentioned that he and the squire will take on the gnome captain, while the archer girl and the old man will handle the fighters in the cave. His strategy is pretty simple, since they need someone experienced on each team. He even thinks to himself that given his experience level, going up against a gnome captain is practically suicide. He figures the kid might be a newbie, but he has to believe that Chinta Erum, this seems like a name and should be kept as is if possible. If it needs translation indicate what it means, will hold his own. And the moment the poor guy looks at the creature, he's paralyzed with fear. And it's no wonder why. The boy's completely overwhelming the poor guy. The knight, let's call him hashtag, tells his squire, Cabrinha, to pull himself together. Because at this moment, a powerful blow is headed straight for the squire. The knight continues to assess the situation. If his companion is in this state, he certainly won't be able to defend himself as effectively. The blow lands with such force that Cabrina's shield goes flying. The poor squire is trembling with fear. Meanwhile, the examiner stands calmly, just observing everything with his clipboard. Hashtag is confused. Why isn't the association employee doing anything? He remembers the examiner saying he would help. One thing got dangerous, but at this rate, the kid's going to get clobbered. With no other choice, he quickly snatches the shield off the ground and pulls a parry out of nowhere. Dark Souls style, the creature winds up for another attack. Another swing of its massive weapon. It slams down with earth-shattering force. But the kid manages to block the blow. He holds his ground against the immense pressure, saving his companion. He summons every ounce of strength he has left and pushes back against the creature's weapon. He forces the creature's attack off course, gouging a deep furrow in the ground. But the creature isn't done yet. It finishes its combo with another crushing blow, slamming into the knight. Once again, he raises his shield in defense. Doubt creeps into his mind. He wonders if he can actually withstand this attack. His thoughts race. If the young goatman could recover amidst the chaos of battle, surely they could still defeat this creature. But a grim thought persists. At this rate, they're all gonna die. Our hero calls out to the knight. It's not a bad plan, he thinks. And then the little guy stops the creature's attack with just 2 fingers. He stands there, completely calm, and tells the knight to try again. The knight, witnessing this unbelievable feat, realizes that the kid just stopped Captain Goblin's attack with only 2 fingers. And in the next scene, the protector tells him to raise his shield and face the knoll once more. He says, "You've done it before." Then questions, "Why can't you do it again?" And again urges him to get up and raise his shield. Seeing all this, the young man is completely lost and confused about what's happening. Even Niall finds the whole situation bizarre. The poor guy is in a state of panic, and the silver-haired man continues to yell at him to get up and fight back against Neil's attack. Suddenly, the poor young man looks at Gneil, then back at the protagonist, utterly bewildered, trying to understand what the heck is going on. He starts yelling, saying he doesn't understand what's going on. They're in mortal danger. The small man interrupts him again, calling him an impertinent child. The small man continues to yell indignantly, demanding to know how he dares question him after witnessing the glorious guidance of the Lion King heart. He continues ranting to Heil about how a Templar knight like himself, like Yahello is, guiding a playboy soldier is an honor that should be passed down for generations. He goes on, telling the young man that he hasn't even thanked him for his benevolence. Both the young man and Rue Boys are completely confused. The poor young man is trembling with fear. And then the little girl Greta with him, urging him once again to raise his shield and block another attack. The onslaught continues. Our poor hero can only think to himself, what in the world did I do to deserve this? But one thing's for sure, he needs to do something. If he wants to survive this guy's attacks, the monster seems to reset its train of thought. It lunges at the hero again. But our quick-witted protagonist is ready. He stares down the creature, a fierce look in his eyes. He doesn't need to say a word. His expression screams, "You looking for a fight, you rabid mutt?" The monster, suddenly looking more like a scared puppy, whimpers softly. "Who am I kidding, pretending to be a dog? This is incredible." The poor creature is trembling in fear, and this is the perfect moment for him to strike back against the monster world. In the next moment, he manages to defend himself against the creature's attack, taking the full force of the blow. He realizes just how powerful the monster truly is. With a single strike, it nearly shattered his shield. Then the little guy starts calling him an idiot. He keeps telling him that he relies on a shield and can't fight, using only brute strength. He keeps telling the kid not to confront an enemy stronger than he can possibly handle. He tells him to dodge the creature's attacks and look for an opening. He continues questioning the young knight. How can you possibly win a fight? By only defending. He points out, Your opponent isn't a scarecrow. He's going to learn your moves. If you just keep blocking, the knight, taking in the hero's advice, it's completely lost on what to do. He's utterly confused. Just as he's about to take a solid hit, right to the face, the hero gives him a light tap on the leg, a subtle hint to dodge. Otherwise, it would have been lights out. The poor knight is still reeling, thinking, if I had tried to block that head on, I would have been toast. Our hero continues, don't waste your potential, and use more of his capabilities, since he can certainly be better than this. The poor guy seeing this, someone actually seeing potential in him. It's a completely foreign concept to him. Terrified, he watches every movement around him. He decides that this battle is almost impossible, and he certainly doesn't stand a chance. He only has potential because the little guy is saying so. But then he feels a surge of motivation and starts to think that maybe, just maybe, he can do this if he changes his strategy a little. As the monster winds up for another powerful blow, he thinks intensely that this time he will succeed. Just as the monster's sword is about to collide with his shield, he manages to dodge the creature's attack, completely redirecting the weapon's trajectory. At that moment, he realizes he successfully blocked the blow, to be sure of the monster's defeat and to let his guard down. But just as he's about to celebrate, he's suddenly smacked right in the face, sending the poor guy crashing to the ground. Our protagonist, witnessing this whole mess, is a bit disappointed. He asks the guy, how could he not see the entire scope of the battle? He goes on to tell the poor fellow that he still has a long way to go to improve. And the result of the evaluation, he remains stuck at rank D. Time passes, and someone mentions they knew it all along, and apparently it's our young protagonist saying he knew the evaluator. Definitely. He wasn't just some ordinary person. The old man continues, explaining that he used to wear a mask to disguise both his face and his body. But to our hero, this doesn't make much sense. After all, he's incredibly powerful. The old man still a bit hesitant to speak too. Our protagonist is practically shaking in his boots. He asks our hero if by any chance he enjoyed participating in the evaluation, and if he got what he wanted out of it. Our hero replies that in a way, he did get what he was looking for. But so far he only has one potential soldier, and then he tells the old man not to get so worked up, since he doesn't plan on going to another continent. Those words hit the old man right where it hurt. He looks relieved, actually, and he tells our hero that he knew exactly what he was thinking. He goes on to say that he was a bit nervous, because His Majesty's power is absolutely monstrous. He continues, saying he was quite surprised by our hero. He says that it might have just been a low-level curse from a D-rank monster, but that monster he was fighting was a C-rank boss, and the guy completely toyed with it, and the little guy, just using his finger, kept poking at the creature. The old man keeps going on about how the Silver, he completely toyed with the creature, and Silver, watching the whole scene unfold, thinks to himself that the creature he just fought couldn't even be considered a proper opponent. It was just that pathetic. But then the old man gets straight to the point and asks if by any chance Her Majesty is thinking about starting a brand new guild from scratch. He adds that they could certainly lend a hand in the preparations. He goes on to say that when establishing an organization of people, nothing's more valuable than a promising reputation. He remarks that there aren't many ways to become famous in this day and age, but then he offers our hero a suggestion. He mentions that recently, a gate turned red in the city of Ganji due to a failed raid. He explains that for the past year, no one has been able to clear it, and that every hunter who's attempted it has been completely destroyed. This place is guarded by a powerful boss called Shangri-La. Meanwhile, at the Sniper's Nest, at the Xiangushu Sports Complex gate, we find a well-equipped team. Gentlemen, this appears to be a group of exceptionally strong hunters. One of the knights remarks to his companion that this place seems incredibly dangerous, and the young man beside him replies, confirming his suspicions. They stare in awe at the dungeon gate, because unlike the others, it has a modern civilization, she observes. Or at least what's left of one. The young archer speaks up. This is incredible. It's like a portal to a future world. The paladin from earlier adds, this place looks more cyberpunk than anything. Super futuristic. Another paladin seems uneasy. He says, we need to reassess our plans, starting with how we organize ourselves. This paladin, judging by his commands, seems to be the leader. He explains that they'll enter that tall building, the skyscraper over there, and use it as their base of operations. Its height, he says, will give us a good vantage point. Arriving at the building, they question one of the rookies, asking if he's picked up on anything at all. The young soldier replies that he hasn't sensed a thing, not a single monster, and certainly no NPCs. Another soldier asks about someone called Genesis. Sniper, he adds. Apparently he's the big boss of this dungeon. The complete lack of life has the captain deeply unsettled. This city is truly bizarre, he thinks to himself. So vast, yet completely devoid of people or monsters. But he decides it's probably a good thing. At least they haven't had to face any resistance forces or some evil tyrannical army. A moment later, he calls out to his comrades, addressing them all, that they have no idea what they're about to face in this place. He urges everyone to stay sharp and to keep their guard up. He continues, explaining that their next step is to choose an expedition team to map out the area. And in that moment, a man is suddenly shot in the head. In the blink of an eye, the team captain is reduced to a bloody mess. His comrades are showered. With the remains of their leader, panic sets in. They're completely traumatized. The only thing they know for sure is that they are under attack. They quickly scramble for cover. "I know what's attacking," one of them says. It's some kind of machine. An android. Suddenly, explosions rip through the building. The soldiers scramble for the nearest shelter. Anywhere safe. Capri thinks about his captain. The man was a tank, high-ranking. Yet even he couldn't react in time. What kind of monster is this, he wonders. They yell, desperately searching for the enemy that's firing on them. Then, the young archer girl shouts, "Target's low, 3 o'clock," but they can't gauge the distance. The force of the blasts is too strong. "The building's going to collapse," someone shouts. They won't last much longer there. And so, the vice captain shouts, "We need to fall back." "That's an order!" Immediately, every other hunter, still alive, scrambles for the nearest exit. The remaining survivors, panicked, wonder what will become of their fallen leader.
The guild master?
Trapped and terrified, they're unsure what to do next. Their only option is to wait and regroup to find a way to defeat this overwhelming threat. The second in command orders the archer to scout ahead, to check the building's exits. With a powerful leap, she moves with a speed that surpasses the others. In response, the young woman tells her second in command that she doesn't sense anyone around, and she believes the coast is clear. But the moment she steps outside the building, she feels a tingling sensation all over her body. And in true Resident Evil fashion, the poor girl is sliced to pieces. Needless to say, this scene isn't for the faint of heart. Our nosy neighbor, witnessing this gruesome spectacle, is completely traumatized. If he wasn't scarred for life before, he certainly is now. He then notices that the entire building is enveloped in incredibly sharp wires. Not just the building, but the entire city as well. They wonder how long this has been going on. When did this happen? And so, Reverend Siri orders them to cut the wire, sever it completely. And so they all stand there, snapping the wire one by one. Meanwhile, the vice leader is trying to figure out who their enemy actually is, and just how long this ordinary person has been watching them. He wonders. We now shift to the perspective of that unholy android. He's been observing the group of hunters, giving off a seriously creepy, spider-like vibe. The android suddenly turns its attention towards the hunters and seems to shoot out some sort of fluorescent web, or rather, steel cables. Something sharp, anyway. And the moment that wire makes contact with the hunters, everything goes haywire. After the explosion, we see groaning figures and people writhing in pain. The vice commander, now missing an arm, is in a complete state of panic. The poor guy is in shock. He's screaming and cursing, calling the boss every name under the sun. The abominable being slowly approaches, readying a massive weapon. And in this moment, the hunter realizes that the creature before him is actually a robot. He even asks the monster. It happens to be a certain Jean, John the Sniper, and then the ridiculous artificial intelligence seems to be remembering something about controlling his creature. Dave continued saying, if the little robot had such and such, it could fight. Even without any maintenance, looks like this robot has taken over the world, folks. Good thing it was just the one, huh? Because what if there are more? Oh boy. Let's see if the commander gets absolutely furious, screaming at the damn robot. He continues on, saying that it's the cursed thing that wiped out all his friends. And the machine maneuvering its razor-sharp wires simply turns the guy into mincemeat. And that Elon Musk robot kept repeating its creator's orders to protect the city from all foreign beings. And so the first raid team, there were simply no survivors. Not from the second or third teams either. That's why the portal's difficulty has been raised to red level. And after a long time, once again, they've assembled more hunters for this dungeon. And it looks more like an army than a small squad. Because there are a lot of people here. Gentlemen, this appears to be a highly specialized team, equipped to handle these high-level portals. Over there, we have S-Class Guild Masters, and other high-ranking heroes, all incredibly experienced and extremely dangerous. And of course, the protagonist's secretary is bringing him a cup of tea. The little guy, all calm and collected,
Walks right up.
and asks what kind of tea that is.
And the young lady says it's stinging nettle tea.
Just kidding. She didn't say that at all. Before we get started on this new chapter of Kingdom Hearts, everyone, hit that like button. Because it really helps me out, you know? The video gets shown to more people, and that makes me super happy. So smash that like button, friend. It doesn't cost you anything. In the last chapter, he's just arrived in a futuristic world, ruled by a mechanical creature called a Jonja Spinner. And he's not alone. A whole squad of hunters is with him. They're huddled together in a makeshift base. They've thrown together. Just then, we see a young woman keeping an eye on the protagonist. She confides that she's a little worried. She's worried things might go too smoothly, or that they might go horribly wrong. She continues, saying that she believes the best-case scenario possible is for everything to go off without a hitch, and for the protagonist to not interfere. But if that were to happen, the protagonist's plan would fall apart, since he wouldn't become famous or attract attention. And in response to this, the little guy teaches him that he's right, that this is the best possible scenario. Seeing this, the young girl is a little taken aback by what the protagonist just said. So our hero explains, if the King of Leonhardt doesn't need to intervene personally, then the situation isn't that bad. The little guy, noticing the young girl's surprise, asks her what she thinks the duty of a monarch is in his kingdom. She innocently replies that it's to rule. Just like that. Our hero says anyone can do that. He even goes on to say that anyone who isn't arrogant and doesn't have 9 fingers would be ideal to govern any nation. The young girl, picking up on the direction of the conversation, starts to notice a pattern in our hero's behavior. She mentions that every time she's seen him jump into the fray, into the heat of an attack, it's always at the moment when no one can block the next blow. And then bam, it's over. The silver-haired man states that it's the monarch's duty, that this is the last stronghold, and the fact that the king has to intervene is a disgrace to the knights, but it also shows the severity of the situation. Our hero then remarks, coincidentally, it looks like I have to do it again, since this place is full of weak, pathetic fools. He sighs dramatically, longing for his honorable knights. The young girl, she's completely baffled by what he's saying. None of it makes sense. From her perspective, this team is incredibly strong. After all, they have S-rank hunters. And even a mage among them, the dark-haired girl, asks why he calls them hunters. He continues, admitting that they are indeed much stronger than ordinary people. However, he adds, there's one crucial detail that makes them all insignificant. They haven't known true war. As the hunters below continue their commotion, Django Spinner observes from above, a cool look on his face. At that moment, the young prodigy is also there, watching the hunters' every move. He thinks to himself, these guys, they clearly have no idea what they're doing. To our hero, who's witnessed countless battles and wars, this is all child's play. These people are nothing but clueless amateurs. They don't have even the most basic understanding of combat. And then the little guy mentions that from the stories he's heard about this Jane Spinner character, he's supposed to be a talented warlord. And the moment he finishes his sentence, an explosion rocks the hunter's base. In the next scene, the story shifts to Jung Jae Spinner's perspective. Judging by this situation, it seems like this story takes place in the past. He's looking down at a human woman, telling her that this is the end for her, and judging by her clothes and the way she speaks. Ginger Spinner! I believe she's the creator herself of the machine. And there, on her deathbed, she asks the creature for one last favor. And since Ginger Spinner is a machine, her request was an order. Eliminate all beings identified as invaders of the city. And that was the cue for the creature to start bombarding the group of hunters. The poor old things are terrified, caught completely by surprise. Back to the creature's perspective. It begins scanning and detecting all life signs around it. And then it pulls out a freaking ray gun. I don't know, like a cannon. And starts blasting the hunters one by one. The sheer power of the machine is so devastating that a crater replaces the scenery. Chaos reigns. In this first round of the machine's attack, a bunch of hunters are already wiped out. The creature starts making calculations. It determines that 23% of the hunters have been eliminated. Since there are still living beings remaining, it begins to charge its energy cannon once more. But just then, a hunter with a gigantic axe appears. With all his might, he manages to knock the creature off balance and strike one of its support points. We can see that the machine's blow was quite sinister, since he actually managed to damage a part of it. But since everything the creature does is logical, it quickly realizes that its main joint area has been damaged, so it shifts its attack priority. And just as it's about to strike the hunter, another one appears. And this is the mage the young woman was talking about. The fire magic is so intense that the moment it hits the machine, it sends it plummeting from the top of the building to the ground. And the chaos doesn't end there. A lightning bolt replaces the debris that the giant caused when it crashed. The colossal machine struggles to recover, and many of its components start to malfunction. Its radar system begins to shut down, recalculating its options. It receives authorization to use and other restricted resources. It seems the creature has networked with the entire city. Using this new setup, he can now clearly see the threat level of each creature. And for him, those hunters are his top priority targets. In the next moment, the ginger-haired man starts to run from the dangerous situation. The hunters quickly realize what he's up to. He suddenly pulls out a 50 caliber pistol from his backside and starts blasting. In the middle of this chaotic battlefield, with bullets flying everywhere, the mage yells for everyone's attention. He tells them to group together because he's about to activate his distortion force field. As the mage crushes the object in his hand, a shockwave, rigid. And the moment those projectiles get close to the force field, they're completely repelled. The other hunters, witnessing this display, are stunned by the young mage's power. In response, he explains that it's a magical tool created to combat the dungeon spinner. He adds that it's a shame to have to use it so early in the fight. Meanwhile, the dungeon spinner is just observing each of the hunters. The first thing it does is repair itself. While its analysis is being completed, and once it has observed everything and identified all the hunter's weaknesses, its counterattack begins. And just like that, he pierces the mage's protective barrier. The little mage is stunned. That was supposed to be impossible. He can't understand how that machine calculated every possible trajectory of the bullets. Suddenly, the hunters are getting peppered with bullets. They yell at the little mage to drop the force field. They can't predict where the bullets are going to land. But just as the mage gathers his magic, the worst thing happens. They realize they're surrounded by wires. For the hunters, the realization comes too late, because the moment the ginger sniper, he was supposed to be escaping. Instead, he was setting up each of these deadly wires, completely trapping all the hunters. With no room to run, the abominable creature begins to charge its beam cannon. The little mage panics, trying to understand how this happened. Their situation is dire. There's no way they can dodge this attack. Just as the ginger spinner's cannon fully charges, and he's about to fire, the neigh of a horse rings out. All the hunters are completely baffled. And then, gentlemen, the horse arrives like a whirlwind. He starts biting at the ginger spinner's threads. And we quickly realize that this horse is actually our hero's steed. In his own words, his old sworn friend. And so the hero's horse manages to save all the other hunters there. Next, our hero, mounted on his valiant steed, catches the attention of Warrior G the sniper, or perhaps the spinner. He continues on, remarking on the courage it takes to face a sea of enemies alone with only a horse as a companion. He goes on to say how even he, the king of Leonhardt, sings his praises. Therefore, he bestows upon him the glorious honor of a duel in his presence. And so, the little plate just sits there shouting, calling out for Guy, wanting the ginger spinner. The other hunters nearby are completely baffled, since no one is answering its calls. The other hunters, witnessing this whole scene, become totally embarrassed. To them, the little plate is just a crazy thing. Meanwhile, the ginger spinner, seeing all of this, is just standing there, wondering what the heck is going on. And while all this nonsense is happening, unbeknownst to him, the charge time for his magnetic cannon is steadily increasing. He stands there, assessing our hero's threat level. To him, the threat our hero poses is 0, especially considering he's just a simple human. Meanwhile, Lionheart, the Lion King, draws his sword from its extra-dimensional space. He starts galloping at full speed on his horse. At that moment, Genghis Pine not only launches his projectile, a powerful attack directed at our hero, but also charges forward at full speed. It seems he intends to wipe out the entire squad of 5 soldiers stationed in the city. However, our proud hero starts shouting, declaring that a knight is unaffected by long-range weapons. He continues to taunt his attacker, calling him a coward. And there was a standstill right in the middle of the battle. Of the biggest, unlike a duel with lances, this little guy goes all out. And so their attacks eventually collide. Once again, the battleground transforms into a kind of atomic explosion. But this time, the ginger spinner is completely blown away. I believe his little legs went flying. And our hero even managed to create a massive hole in the creature's shell. At this very moment, the giant ginger spinner's high-performance calculations stopped working. It was unable to logically comprehend the phenomenon happening before its eyes. Even rhymed there, didn't it? And as for our little hero, he's impressed by his enemy. Even if he is a coward, the creature is quite resilient. Moments before, the machine had calculated the protagonist's threat level. It had scanned our hero's weapon and dismissed it as nothing more than an antiquated spear. It registered the spear's speed, but calculated a limit to the impact it could inflict, based on the protagonist's small size. The machine assessed the protagonist's threat level as 0, a threat not even worth bothering with, since he would be vaporized by the sheer heat of its cannon fire. But then, 3 seconds before impact, the protagonist let out a yell, and a thin barrier materialized around his body, a pattern unlike any phenomenon previously recorded. But then, 2 seconds before impact, there was a direct collision between the cannonball and our hero. From Zhangja Spinner's perspective, the impact alone should have obliterated his opponent. Even attempting to block such an attack would be futile. But a split second before impact, the little guy effortlessly parried the bullet with Dark Souls-level precision, like something straight out of Dark Souls. Dude's a total parry king, this little guy, and the machine was completely dumbfounded. How in the world did this kid deflect his shot? But this, for our hero, is a simple skill easily mastered by any Knight Templar. A Templar Knight? For him, it's as easy as breathing. A miracle only possessed by humanity's strongest warriors of all humanity. This skill is called Divine Law, the blessing of the arrow shield. And with that, the little guy lands a direct hit on the creature, focusing all his power on the Genghis Spinner's shell. Time snaps back to the present. The little guy stands there, waiting for the dust to settle and reveal the completely obliterated creature. On the other side, the Genghis Spinner is utterly destroyed, unable to process, unable to comprehend what just happened. The creature's internal alarm bells start ringing. The enemy threat level is forcibly increased to a level 5, the highest he's ever faced. Every fiber of his being screams one thing: run! And without hesitation, the Genghis Spinner throws up a smoke screen, and just like that, he was gone. Little Platey watches the whole chaotic scene unfold, and to him, the spot where he was supposed to be was completely obliterated. Just the bare ground remained. Meanwhile, time passes. DJ Spinner is back at it again, raving with his creator. She stresses the importance of him protecting that place. At all costs, he can't let anyone get close. And in that moment, he's there, preparing for an imminent confrontation with the protagonist, crafting more makeshift ammunition, strapping every kind of weapon he can find onto himself. By now, DJ Spinner is fully equipped and ready for a level 5 threat. Level 5. Meanwhile, he was lost in thought again, thinking about his master, remembering everything she had told him, her heartfelt thanks for protecting the city. And one thing was certain, things were about to get messy. Meanwhile, in the heart of the ruined city, a group of hunters were searching the rubble. They seemed to be from a different division than where the protagonist was. They meticulously combed the area, until one of them spotted a piece of the sniper Genga. Gabriel quickly alerted his leader, pointing out the visible part of the creature's weapon. The squad leader's face hardened. Recognizing the inherent danger, he began to strategize with his team to get inside the building, next door, while the others behind him, to stay perfectly still, because if they're spotted, they'll need to distract the creature. But the moment he turns around, he sees blood splattering across his face, and his entire platoon, who were right behind him, have been torn apart. Gabriel panics. Realizing his comrades have been slaughtered, he catches a glimpse of the Shanghai Spinner's shadow. He quickly turns, preparing to strike. At the creature, terror grips him. As he frantically searches for the creature, he swears he saw something there. But in that moment, it's too late. His entire body is ripped to shreds by the deadly ginger-colored threads of the Genji Spinner. This chaotic scene is nothing new for the Genji Spinner, for this fearsome machine. It's just another routine procedure. He's already eliminated the 5 enemies in front of him, swiftly and efficiently. But then, in a split second, he hears a blood-curdling scream, agonized and filled with terror. Someone is desperate for their life. A kid comes bursting out, running at full speed, sobbing uncontrollably. Tears streaming down his face, snot flying, even drooling.
The kid is a complete mess.
The Genji Spinner quickly assesses the fleeing hunter, and her AI determines the creature's threat level to be 0. The little brat runs off, wailing, heading towards what looks like a cemetery. Man, that's a bit morbid, isn't it? The old geezer of an extra, to top it all off, trips and falls flat on his face. He turns around and sees the bouncy creature approaching him. He starts begging for his life. Meanwhile, the sharpshooter just watches the hunter. Once again, the machine remembers its creator. He remembers her saying he knows full well that soon she'll be buried there with the rest of them. Just like all the others, she'll become a permanent part of the city. And once again, she tells her robot to protect the city at all costs. Inside the sharpshooter's head, a flood of directives begins to appear. No one's quite sure what happened to the poor machine, but it just up and left. It hightailed it out of there, leaving the guy alive. Meanwhile, other hunters show up, S-rank hunters no less. The big, burly hunter asks the kid, what in the world happened? But to him, it doesn't make much sense. He figures the spinning thing was just tired, since it just ran away. Instead of obliterating him, Or maybe it saw those powerful S-rank heroes arrive and decided to make a run for it, knowing it couldn't win, since it wouldn't stand a chance. The S-rank mage ponders this, and he thinks it might be true. He says that even creatures must have their limits. The little goats look around, taking in their surroundings, and they realize that they are standing in a cemetery. The strange thing is, this cemetery is the cleanest place in the entire city. One of the other little goats mentions that the cemetery is actually the only clean place in the city. Meanwhile, Judge Spinner is patrolling the city. With his precise air calculations, he states that his chance of winning against all invaders is 92%. Meanwhile, the other hunters decide to leave the morbid place. And in that moment, once again, Ginger Spinner is there, issuing directives to annihilate all unidentified individuals. And so time passes once more. And once again, he's strategizing, preparing to become much stronger. He needs to recharge all his resources to annihilate the level 5 threat. The level 5 threat! Just as he's about to re-engage in battle, it seems someone has infiltrated Cheju's hideout, Spinner's hideout. Silver catches the creature's attention, asking him, "So this is your hideout?" Silver continues to taunt the old hunk of metal and asks if he enjoyed himself with the commoners outside. It's no secret to anyone watching that Silver greatly values honor and duty. It would be an understatement to say he's the embodiment of nobility. Our silver-haired hero despises cowardly ambushes, even if his enemies deserve such treatment. Like a true lion, he always seeks a fair fight. Meanwhile, our sharp-shooting hero takes out the remaining enemies. Life, as we know, isn't always fair, and that means our hero's opponents won't always play by the same rules, but that's no reason for our hero to abandon his knightly code. The King of Leonhardt never wavered in his unwavering resolve. It was his greatest strength. And it's precisely why he was chosen by the goddesses. Our protector begins to think, I shouldn't expect honor from a machine. As the monstrous machine continues to relentlessly attack him, the little plate just calmly acts like his own personal Perry the Platypus shield. The spinning top just sits there, recalculating its route, searching for any possible opening to try and land a solid hit on our hero. That's how those .70 caliber projectiles are coming at our protagonist. Our hero simply stomps on the ground, and a bunch of rocks start to rise up, shielding him from that overwhelming attack. The creature just sits there, a bit confused about what's happening. And in the meantime, amidst all those rocks, our little hero emerges with his trusty weapon, ready to unleash an attack with all his might. In response to this, Ginger Spinner leaps into action and starts firing off a barrage of projectiles at our hero. From Spinner's perspective, this is a pretty intense fight. While the little guy remains calm and collected, suddenly the robot goes flying away from the protagonist, bouncing off buildings like a pinball. He's like a jet-propelled Spider-Man. But of course, our hero isn't about to be left behind. He charges forward, galloping on his horse. The difference between him and Ginger Spinner? Everywhere our hero lands, things explode. Boom! From the robot's perspective, everything that's happening is completely baffling. This enemy he's fighting is beyond comprehension. A human shouldn't be this fast. Next, the camera focuses on the spinning Gigi. He spots a steel beam. He grabs it with one of his paws to reposition for his attack, focusing on a massive frontal assault. Just as the machine and the young prodigy are about to collide, the prodigy's horse suddenly lowers its head. In the blink of an eye, the machine dodges our hero's attack. Our hero, remaining calm and composed, remarks to the machine, "Not bad." And so the clash begins anew. Gunfire erupts, aimed at the prodigy. But the prodigy's horse is so swift that none of the projectiles even come close. Suddenly, in the midst of the battle, a nearby building explodes. I think it was because of some missiles from that sniper gang. A shower of debris begins to rain down, falling towards our hero and his horse. But our protagonist's skills are incredibly OP. He leaps and bounds over the falling rubble, gaining altitude with each jump. Once he reaches higher ground, the spinner calculates all the variables. It announces that there are 68 projectiles remaining. Now it prepares to unleash its full arsenal, preparing to fire everything at once. Meanwhile, the robot, despite being peppered by the barrage of bullets, finds our hero's skin incredibly thick. The bullets do no damage, and this is the only opening. Our hero needs to obliterate the creature with the glory of all the Knights of Leonhardt. The blow landed with devastating force, but this time there was no catastrophic explosion, no earth-shattering kaboom. The only casualty was the ground, where our hero face-planted. The hedge spinner, now only half a spinner, hung limply in the air. The creature itself acknowledged the damage was fatal. The robot, still glitching out, recalled his creator's final instructions. He remembered her warning, never release the being. Imprisoned within the city, as a last resort, a failsafe was activated. The GG spinner initiated its self-destruct sequence. And with that, it detonated. Every explosive within the landfill facility began to glow ominously, and the explosion engulfs the city. Once again, the story shifts, not to the past, but to when as 10,253 opened his eyes. Jean, the genius sniper, awakens inside a shipping container. It reeks of oil and grime. The moment he sees the first flash of light, amidst the tremendous chaos engulfing the city, a man urges him to protect the city at all costs. And in that very moment, the same man is blown apart by a creature that can only be described as demonic. This becomes the genius sniper's first mission, to help his allies. And so, the confrontation with the invading forces begins. His mission to protect the citizens is also underway, as the Jaegers and Spinners descend upon the city immediately. They defeated all the enemies and quickly became heroes. The story of the Defender robots, who saved the city from utter despair, was a welcome relief for the citizens who were losing hope, and the Jangry Spinners became a symbol of hope. The Steel Knights, including, of course, the Ginger Sniper, number 10,253, the one who had been causing humanity so much trouble, now protected the city. Under the commander's orders, they protected until there was nothing left to defend, even with his creator's dying wish. To protect the city, the creator had said that whatever it was, must never escape. And there, the only remaining machine was Unit 10253. Its orders were simple: keep everyone away from that thing. And from that moment on, Ginger Spinner stood guard and protected. He stood guard again and protected again. And so it went. Countless battles were fought. And Ginger Spinner always won, until the day he faced Protinja. Our hero was there, completely awestruck. But Ginger Spinner ended up falling into Protinja's hands. As Protinja looked back, he notices something malevolent. It's the very thing that Jean, the spinner, was protecting. The little guy understands perfectly what this creature was programmed to do, and it seems that Silver recognizes it too. He calls it the Jewel of Wisdom. He states that it's something that shouldn't exist in humanity. Silver quickly turns to the spinner, and it seems that even heavily wounded, the creature still wants to fight. Silver wonders for how long this thing has been protecting this place, for how long it fought alone against these things. He says to the spinner, Ginger Spinner, it was a truly devout and loyal knight, and every living being across all dimensions is indebted to him. Thanks to his service, Sir Ginger Spinner, the Silver Knight solemnly declares that his mission has come to an end. And at that moment, our hero irradiates the area with divine energy, completely obliterating the profane being. This symbolizes the eternal rest of Ginger Spinner. Some time passes and our young hero is walking with the head of the Hunters Association. The old man seems disappointed. He mentions that our hero destroyed the jewel. Our hero turns to him and asks if he's complaining, but the old man quickly wipes the smile off his face and says, "That's not how it works. Since I killed the goblin sniper, I have every right to do whatever I want with the jewel." Then our hero tells him not to get too excited, because it's actually poison. The old man is taken aback and asks our hero, "Poison? What do you mean?" Our hero explains that the jewel was created by demons, specifically the demon of wisdom, to tempt humans. In other words, the artifact is a demonic item. The old man starts to panic. Our hero continues, explaining that at first, it grants the desires of whoever uses it. But later on, he'll start demanding something in return for these wishes. It's like feeding a beast to tame it, to subdue it. And that's how he starts to corrupt humans with promises of eternal life. And the moment it reaches that level, it won't be long before the individual loses their sanity and becomes a demon themselves. The young man asks if they have managed to find these artifacts anywhere else. He continues, telling the old man that it's best to destroy them all as soon as possible. The old man becomes slightly frantic and says that he'll report this to the American government immediately. Robert had said that he really should do this, but perhaps he's already fallen prey to the devil's temptation. And at that moment, the colossal door begins to open, revealing what looks like a laboratory filled with numerous scientists. He had a question, a curious one. He wondered, is this where the giant spinner is resting? The old man confirms his suspicions. He's here, safe and sound, he replies. And so they see half of the giant spinner, completely wrecked. The old man asks our hero, "What do you want to do with this hunk of metal?" Our hero declares, as an honorable knight, "I will bury it and say a prayer so he can laugh for the goddess's banquet hall. But first, he needs to be blessed." And so the little priest pulls out from his pocket dimension a chalice. As the little priest pours out the blessing, he tells the machine to rest in peace. Then the dark room is filled with a ray of divine purification. And then, mysteriously, the Jange spinner begins to move. The little priest is a bit surprised. He sees the Janga moving there. The poor old man almost pooped his pants. The little priest tries to get the Yang spinner's attention. It starts making strange noises, like the little priest watches the movement. And to him, it's very clear. The energy radiating from the gene spinner. It's divine power. Pratinho starts to realize that maybe the divine blessing he bestowed upon it created some kind of miracle. And so, amidst the scrap metal, the spinner transforms into this miniature figure. It sits there making little grunting noises, like a crab. It's the perfect imitation of a little crab, dude. The protector continues to ponder this. He begins to draw his sword from his dimensional storage. He says he understands perfectly. And if it really is Heil, the change spinner, then maybe the goddess will choose Heil as well. Then Pratinho, with his consecrated sword, he begins to unleash his full power. The old man from the Hunters Association and the other scientists present are stunned by the sheer magnitude of our hero's power. Then, with a single swift strike, he seems to tear through the fabric of space and time. And from this dimensional rift emerges a breathtakingly beautiful woman. The onlookers are awestruck by her immense grace and beauty. They immediately prostrate themselves before her, each of them certain that this radiant woman is no mere mortal. She must be a divine being. Beyond compare, our hero bows deeply, and with a smile addresses his goddess, catching her attention. The goddess, in turn, she continues speaking calmly to the little boy, calling him her first knight. She asks him how she can help him on his quest. The little guy looks thoughtful for a moment, and he begins to lay out his plan. He's pitching her the idea of, he goes on to explain that this creature is an honorable knight, and an example to be followed by all. He then tells the goddess that he is someone deserving of her favor. The goddess, lost in thought, stares at the small offering. She then tells our protagonist that he hasn't fulfilled the missions she requested of him. She continues, saying he hasn't upheld his honor, nor offered her his glory. But in his defense, the young protagonist argues, as your first knight, he declares. He continues, if it weren't for my existence, you would be worthy of the Leonhardt glory. Therefore, I am a great knight. The saint, beaming at her loyal knight, says to him, if that's how you describe yourself, then I have no reason to question you. But first, she adds, I need to be sure of one thing. And with that, the goddess begins to pray. And she mentions to the knight a being from another world, from another realm entirely, that she will guide him, teach him to love the light, and uphold justice. All this talk of righteousness is lost on her knightly companion. The little metal snail just sits there, making its clicking and whirring noises, completely oblivious to what's going on. And then the goddess continues, saying the knight is full of honor and knowledge. But at heart, she adds, the creature is still just a child. The goddess then asks him, our hero, to help her knight rid the world of evil. And in doing so, he too will become a knight. The fidget spinner knight quickly turns to face our protagonist, and in that look the creature gives him, he seems to understand. He feels everything perfectly, and he turns to the saint and starts speaking in his own language. Then the machine begins to learn human language, and the moment it succeeds, there it is. The module speaks. He declares that all demons will be annihilated, and continues, telling the saint that this is an excellent plan. And once again, the saint continues praising, telling Saint Django that he has done a great job, but as long as he remains loyal and helps her knight, she will be with him in glory. And so, in this moment, the little creature has officially become a knight, a Templar. And in this very moment, he's receiving the light of justice. He's been dubbed the Templar Knight, Django Spinner. Meanwhile, in the Magic Tower of the United States, we hear someone screaming in agony, and this person sounds absolutely furious. Another person in the tower is frantically apologizing, saying they were unable to carry out an order. Then we see what appears to be one of those ancient artifacts of wisdom, and the artifact is calling the person an idiot, asking if they can't even complete a simple task. Wait, it's completely laying into him, calling him every name in the book, and the poor guy is just prostrated on the floor, begging the artifact for forgiveness, instead of just explaining what he was supposed to do, and that everything went completely wrong. Because a survivor of sorts, called Leon Mart, appeared, and because of him, there were many unexpected changes in the mission. The unholy artifact starts yelling at the old man, saying that all he's doing is filling his ears with useless excuses. He keeps asking about this survivor, Leon Marte, but then, when the artifact finishes speaking, it seems like the old man recognizes the name. He becomes a bit distressed, wondering where he's seen that guy before. The artifact quickly tells him to turn on the TV and put on the news channel, and the old man rushes off to do just that. The moment he turns on the television, he sees Leon Marte giving an interview. And the protector, during that interview, he goes on to mention that he's the Lion King of Heart, the Draconian Lion, Lionheart. The creature speaking through the artifact starts to freak out. Man, he wonders aloud, why am I so unlucky? in my life. The old man keeps calling the artifact Master, and it's pretty clear to him that his master is terrified of something. The artifact quickly declares that it's giving up on this world. It's never coming back here. The little mage pleads for it to speak to him again, and legend has it that the demon using the artifact to communicate with humans never returned, and that artifact never made a peep again. Meanwhile, at the Korean Hunters Association, the old man there is a little flustered since the young prodigy just ordered him to register the Genga sniper as a member of his guild. The old-timer even tells the prodigy that it's going to be a bit difficult to enforce this immediately, but the prodigy doesn't seem to care. He's messing around, whatever, it doesn't matter. And so he leaves with Ginger Spinner. The little robot even glances back at the prodigy, and the prodigy flinches and spits up ketchup. The deity asks the prodigy if he's all right, but in response, our hero says he's totally fine. He continues to ponder, thinking that to appoint a Templar knight in a land like this, without any deities, was asking too much of his body. The little spinner tries to talk to the protagonist, nudging him or doing whatever it seems like she's trying to do. The protagonist sighs and says it's not her fault, but his own for not being strong enough. And so, radiantly, she says it could never be the protagonist's fault, but her own because she is too weak. In response to this, the protagonist says that no matter the situation, no one can blame a deity. He then earnestly asks her to never say such things again. And the deity beams with pride. She expresses her eternal gratitude for his unwavering loyalty. But she adds that even though it's due to the lack of divine intervention on this land, the fault ultimately lies with her and the other gods for not intervening sooner. Our hero, witnessing this, is left completely speechless. The goddess then tells our hero to rest for a while, and she assures him to always have faith in his gods, for they will always be there for him. Meanwhile, in the land of the gods, a meeting seems to be taking place. I only recognize that one little goddess, as someone says, the one who purified that entire field. She continues to deliberate with the other gods about how they need to help their faithful follower. And so, the story tells us about the day King Leonardo turned 121 years old. It was the day the world ended, and only one night remained. It was then that he banished all the gods from his world and drew them into his own heart. All the gods were evacuated into the heart of the holy man. They remained there observing as King Leonhard subdued all the evil monsters for 180 years. Just one person, one night, Egofardo of the entire world. And that is precisely why all the gods of the pantheon owed an unpayable debt to our protagonist. The goddess of life asks another goddess, I've forgotten what she is. She asks if her baby is all right, referring to the protagonist. In response, the other goddess says the protagonist is not well at all. She continues, saying her knight is pushing himself too hard. The goddess of life is worried. She asks what they should do. The other god seems rather angry. He says that appointing a single Templar knight has put all this pressure on him. He wonders where the Lion King is gone. Of Leonhard, the hero who shines with the glory of the gods. This is Bedos, the god of war and fire. The saint calls him War, and teach him some dignity. After all, she continues, the hero fought for the gods for over 200 years, and ultimately triumphed. The god of war growls, I'm well aware of that. That's precisely why I'm so furious. But this anger, it's directed at myself. He sighs, and there's nothing I can do. The other gods fall silent, seemingly agreeing with his assessment. The blonde goddess speaks up. These 180 years, it's time. It's time we broke our silence. I can't bear to watch my champion suffer any longer. Another god calls for attention. I have an idea, he announces. He continues, just as the goddess of life did in the plains, they can purified everything there. He suggests that they should bestow any other blessings. They can, to increase the people's faith. This little guy is the deity of the blacksmith's forge, ETO, the god of war. He wonders if the god ETO is suggesting they do some missionary work. ETO agrees, saying he understands perfectly. He goes on to say they should show miracles to the humans. He continues, saying that from what they've observed through the life of their faithful knight, this world is connected by something called the internet. And that's exactly what they plan to use to their advantage. The god of war is a little confused, asking why in the world the king of Leonhard didn't think of this idea himself, especially since he used to live among the citizens of this world. ETO explains that he lived in this world long before the internet became popular. And once again, we say goodbye to the blonde girl who calls the god ETO Steel. And you know what? I think I'll call him Steel too. It has a nice ring to it. Blondie goes on to explain that the news from Leonhard took 20 years to spread, but Steel just smiles. And he says that's when his new knight will jump into action. And so time passes. Meanwhile, one of the newbies at the Hunters Association is hanging around, wondering what the heck is going on. Then the guild manager goes to see what the bald guy is talking about. he notices something strange on YouTube. The bald guy asks if he gave permission for this. The guild manager stares at the screen and realizes there's a video playing. A live prayer video. "Gentlemen," the voice says. "On the channel, Big Panther TV, and man, the advertisement is wild. The old guy is ranting about why go to the hospital. The worker, an office worker, who used to look down on farmers, had his entire perspective changed by a single sentence from one. And with just a spoon, someone's life can be completely transformed. They asked the Dalai Lama, just kidding. Just a little joke. And ladies and gentlemen, the comments on this video are gold. These guys are trying to figure out what kind of ad this is. What is this even? And then another guy mentions that this video is being translated into over 104 languages. Man, I wish I could do that. Imagine that for my channel. I'd be rolling in dough. The folks over at the Hunters Agency are sitting there thinking, among them, Dikarek is involved in these activities. One man mentions that this entire pantheon was undoubtedly the brainchild of His Majesty Leonhardt, and the head of the association. He asks if by chance, they believe Leonhardt is involved in this YouTube channel, and so the bald man mentions that it was the young woman following Leonhardt who created the channel. The bald man then mentions the conversations he had with her. The young woman with the cat profile picture wanted to speak with the manager because her computer was acting up. The young woman even took a picture of her computer. She asked the man if just by looking, he can tell what the problem is. And so the Hunter's Guild manager suggests an idea. He states confidently that she clearly doesn't understand computers. But he goes on to say that the biggest problem with all of this is that these videos aren't clickbait. They're completely real. He asks his team, a little worried about what they should say, and most importantly, what their leader, Leonhardt, is planning. The sly fox quickly turns to his comrades and tells them he's going for a walk. He's going to talk to Leonhardt directly to find out what he's up to. Meanwhile, at Leonhardt's penthouse, guess who was behind this whole charade? It was none other than Rujong Spinner, and the little guy was finishing up the video subtitles. Man, I wish I had one of those, he says, to help me make videos. Look, you're amazing. Transcribing my videos into multiple languages, dude. I'd be making bank. Just then, someone opens the door to the room. It looks like it's the young woman, the owner of the laptop. She asks the ginger-haired kid if he's finished using her laptop and what he's doing there. In response, he explains that what he's doing is called Operation Noise Marketing, and Phase 1 is complete. The little robot continues. He's moving on to Phase 2. The network hack is in progress. Listening to all this technical jargon, the young girl thinks it's all part of some cool game. And here we see that young Harry doesn't know the first thing about computers. Meanwhile, out on the plains of Naju, for those of you who need a refresher, that's the place where the saint purified the crops. The guild manager, that loudmouth, is yelling for Her Majesty. He keeps shouting that the video, whatever it is, needs to be taken down. It needs to disappear. The young girl, listening to all of this, is completely lost. And look at our hero, calmly sipping his tea. The young woman then offers him some tea. He accepts gratefully. He takes a big gulp of the tea. Suddenly, he remembers something and asks them about the person who made the video. In response, our hero mentions Sir Spinner. The manager asks, who in the world is this Spinner? The young woman points to a man. He stares at the man, thinking about the murderous machine that makes the videos. The manager asks the man about, he means to ask about taking down the video. The man thinks for a moment, then says, Your Majesty should know about this. He explains that the rice grains they cultivate here on the Naju Plains are completely different from those grown on planet Earth. He goes on to say that all the effects that this grain provides, it's like something out of a fairy tale. So the old man explains that once people find out everything that can be done with this one rice paddy, the entire world will come after them. And if that happens, it'll only be a matter of time before the Naju Plains are overrun with thieves. He goes on to say that they certainly won't be ordinary thieves. The old man continues explaining to the protagonist that as soon as the Food Association allows cultivation, he'll ensure the association helps as soon as possible. And so, the old man addresses His Majesty, imploring him to wait just a little longer. The young protagonist looks thoughtful and he tells the man that he understands perfectly. He says that he knows they have their own laws and systems, and because of that, he understands the situation. However, our hero adds that this worry about theft is unnecessary, since this plantation belongs to a goddess. Therefore, it cannot be stolen. Hearing this, the man is confused. He wonders to himself, how on earth can the protagonist be so confident? Time passes, and day turns to night. On the road through the plains of Naju, we see 4 carriages and several people. There on the road, one of the men, shrouded in mystery, continues to say that these "a few grains of rice," one of them scoffs, must be a joke. But then, one of the blonde guys with the leader starts questioning things. A little irritated, he thought security here would be a lot tighter. But there's nothing. But then, the leader says all they need to do is grab the seeds and torch the whole place. Or at least, as much as they can. Immediately, Gabriel orders his goons to get the gasoline. These guys are part of the Viper Squad, the Korean branch of the Demonic Human Association, a group of assassins for hire. Eventually, the thieves begin to make their way into the field, spreading gasoline everywhere. Suddenly, one of the thieves spots a figure, standing right in front of him. They all freeze, fear gripping them. But then, as the moonlight breaks through the clouds, they realize it's just an old scarecrow. The other thieves, watching from behind, realize it's nothing but a scarecrow, start laughing and teasing. The poor guy who nearly wet himself. But the terrified thief, the one who thought he saw a person, can't shake the feeling that something's off. To him, the scarecrow seemed to have moved. Moving or not, one thing's for sure, that scarecrow is seriously creepy. According to, another one of the henchmen gets his leader's attention, telling him to look in another direction. And there they are, a whole bunch of scarecrows. A ridiculously unnecessary amount, total overkill. The leader of the crew starts chewing out his underlings, since the common thieves are standing there, scared stiff of the scarecrows. So the leader goes on another rant, reminding them of their mission. He tells them to hurry up and get it done. This whole plan seems pretty strange. First, they want to burn down as much of the field as possible, and then they're going to collect the seeds. That's a pretty crazy idea. Just like the boss ordered, everyone starts pouring gasoline everywhere. After they're done dousing the field, flammable liquid covered the entire field. The little goblins were already feeling pretty proud of themselves. Their leader was telling them they absolutely had to grab at least one bag of rice. After all, everyone said those grains were incredibly valuable. Just then, the leader noticed the scarecrows were gone. He was the first to realize it. He frantically asked his goons, "Where did those abominable things go?" And just as quickly as the scarecrows vanished, some of his goons started disappearing too. In the blink of an eye, a horde of scarecrows surrounded the thieves. Behind the leader, a scarecrow wielding a massive club appeared. In his hand, when the leader turns and looks at the scarecrow's face, he nearly jumps out of his skin. And in its reflection, he already senses something's off. He quickly exclaims that these cursed scarecrows are actually moving. They're definitely not normal scarecrows. They look more like monsters. And at that moment, we see the scarecrow's true forms. Creatures. Vile creatures that move to protect the sacred harvest. The other petty thieves start screaming in terror, asking their leader what they should do. Their leader is in disbelief. There's no way these things could be monsters. There hasn't even been a Dango breach. The next problem. It seems some of the thieves managed to escape, alive. They were all standing there, wondering what in the world those things were. Another one of the thugs mentions that he's never seen a creature like that before, not even inside the dungeon. In response, their little leader, in a full-blown panic, yells back at him, saying that he doesn't know either. His main concern, he thinks to himself, is that most of his men were left behind. Since they all ran off in such a hurry, he continues to think and realizes that this whole request was extremely strange. Surely someone was trying to mess with them. Then once again, one of the thugs gets his leader's attention and points to something very interesting in front of them. When the thieves arrive, the leader spots a silo. And where there's a silo on a farm, there's bound to be a mountain of grain. Seeing this opportunity, the little boss thinks, this is a huge bonus. It makes his job even easier. He won't have to harvest the rice from the fields. He continues on, thinking to himself, if this rice is really there, we're going to be rich. A greedy grin spreads across his face as he tells his goons, grab every grain of rice you can. Load up the cart. He's practically giddy with excitement because he believes the monsters only guard the fields, not the storage buildings. So, in the warehouses, they'll be perfectly safe. The following happens. The moment the little boss takes a step to get closer to the silo, a bomb explodes, and the poor guy goes sprawling, landing hard on the ground. His little lackeys ask their bosses if he's by any chance still alive. The guy lying there wonders, who in the world would put landmines here? Seeing this absolute terror, the thieves are petrified. And in this moment, the whirring sound of a chainsaw suddenly cuts through the air. A robotic voice drones on monotonously. They are not authorized to enter this area. One of the bystanders recognizes the chainsaw-wielding man. That's Chainsaw Man, he exclaims. The guy from the Zhongji portal incident. Chainsaw Man himself. And so, the menacing robotic figure continued to obliterate the intruders all night long. By daybreak, they were all lying there, completely incapacitated, The leader of the group was in particularly bad shape. Not only was his leg broken and in a cast, but he was also tied up tight. His entire crew of goons were in the same predicament. Above them, signs displayed the farm's rules for a happy life. Rules for happiness on the farm, or the first rule, the second through the fifth. And there at the very end was a specific law for thieves. And at that moment, the Viper Squad was successfully apprehended because of the Human Demonic Association's arrest. The value of the Pantheon and blessed rice skyrocketed by an insane amount. Protena went around promoting the Pantheon for the sake of rice circulation. In all of this press coverage, there was just one small incident that occurred, and the journalist clearly wrote about it. Man, in the article's title, it asked, how much should we tolerate cultural differences? And it's no wonder, man. It seems someone wanted to have lunch with Prota. And Protenya mentioned how a relay explicitly uses to have dinner with the king. But in the end, the whole internet was buzzing about the little guy and the Pantheon and the top 5 most searched topics. And were all related to the protagonist or his Pantheon. Man, I forgot what they call this thing. Trending topics? It's something like that. I don't know. I'm not familiar with these things. In the next scene, the little guy had just finished reading the newspaper. He was all happy and cheerful now that he understood the god's plan. He goes on, thinking to himself that it seems the gods have adjusted much faster than he did in modern society. At that moment, a young man gets the protagonist's attention. He tells His Majesty that he has good news. The others in the room look stunned. The young man announces that the results of the rice evaluation have just been released, and each sack is worth over 230 million. The protagonist shows no reaction. He simply tells the young man that the price of rice should be cheaper. The young man is confused. He asks if it wouldn't actually be better if the price was high. Our hero explains that the market can set the price of an item, but if the price of grain is too high, then common people won't be able to afford it. He continues, saying that the gifts of the divinities should be shared by everyone. I just came here for a bit. To unwind, just to be on my own. The protector continues, saying he met with the president. He went on and on about how they needed to preach to the farmers about the blessings of the divinities. The president's response was that the government needed to maintain religious neutrality. The protector seemed a bit indignant about this. Then with a slight smile, he pauses in thought and mentions that he needs to find another way to gather more faith. Our hero seems to have an idea. He says that this will gather the power and strength of Leonhardt. The next day, the young woman seems a bit worried and asks the hero if by chance he thinks his plan will actually work, since she managed to requisition the yellow portal, which he had previously requested. She mentions that the biggest problem will be clearing the portal of the people he also requested. From her perspective, it seems impossible, but our hero remains unwavering. And in the next scene, we see a massive skyscraper, and inside this building, we see a large group of hunters. Some faces are even familiar. Gentlemen, the young man from the hero's previous mission, is talking to the old man. They've met once again. The old man keeps asking, the goat-headed demon wonders if he ended up here because of the hero's message, and the demon continues, saying he's quite curious about what's going to happen. The small fry from the kobold mission, whose name escapes him at the moment, mentions that he's also a bit curious. He scans the surroundings, taking it all in, and he figures that at best, everyone here is a D-rank hunter, or maybe even C-rank. Meanwhile, one of the extras starts chatting up a young woman. Her name is Harry. They say she's a magic swordsman, an A-rank, and apparently she broke the record during last year's test. Lost in thought, the goat-headed demon, he starts to panic. Standing right there before him is the dragonic lion, Leonhardt. Now that he knows the man's true identity, he's completely dumbfounded. He continues to think about the young protagonist, knowing full well that he wasn't just anyone, and more importantly, that he came from a completely different world. And so, in the next scene, the protagonist is at a table, speaking to a gathered crowd. Then, the protagonist welcomes all the hunters who answered his call. He goes on to explain that the reason he invited everyone here is because he's looking for soldiers to join his guild. The Pantheon, our hero, continues listening as the speaker explains that those who are qualified, those who prove themselves, and those who withstand the training will be granted the honor of joining his army. The young recruit listening to this speech is starting to get a little confused. The speaker keeps talking about an army, not a guild, which is what he expected. In the next scene, the bald man begins his presentation. Flipping through slides, he announces that right now, they will be briefed on the entrance exam. Their mission, to reach a yellow portal at St. John's Station. The recruits hear this and exchange glances. A yellow portal. They're instantly indignant, grumbling amongst themselves. They're so outraged that to them it's as if they've been asked to enter their own deaths. And a lot of them are left there not understanding what kind of what kind of messed up test this is. So you guys can understand a bit about this whole gate ranking system, I'll quickly show you guys. The black gate is the most insane of them all, and that's where the dish was found. The red gate was that one, from that Jang Spinner guy. The orange one? It was from that hunter that the protector also turned. And below him, you have these low-level ones, right? Yellow, green, and blue. But a yellow gate, meaning a D-rank hunter or a C-rank, went to fight in these gates. That definitely means they were incredibly strong. The hunters are absolutely furious. The poor guy in charge is at a complete loss for words, trying to calm everyone down. But he finally speaks up, telling them that if they don't want to continue with the test, they're free to leave. Still fuming, the hunters start to storm off. There's nothing else they can do. As time passes, more and more hunters give up and leave, but a handful of hunters remain, determined to complete the test. Our little protagonist remains completely neutral, observing the chaos unfold. And then he points to a young man with curly hair. The guy freezes, completely stunned. A look of fear washes over him, wondering what's in store. The question hangs in the air. Why he decided to stay behind and not leave with the others. The poor guy, still scared and stuttering. He says that he believes there must be some meaning behind all of this. Hearing this answer, our hero isn't exactly thrilled. The guy thinks there's some kind of trick or a prank being played on them. Time keeps ticking by, and our hero questions each of them. He asks why they chose to stay instead of leaving with the others. Some just say they stayed, and there's nothing special to it. While others mention they stayed because their friend did, and he decided to stay as well. So in the following scene, the protagonist points to the young man he had encountered on a previous mission. I've still forgotten his name. Gabriel stands there, lost in thought. And in his mind, he's thinking that this is a guild that was essentially created by an S-rank. And for him, there are no second chances. He has to seize this opportunity with everything he's got. He continues, adopting the motivational tone of a drill sergeant. Note, Brazilian Army reference removed as per request to avoid cultural specifics that might not translate well. He speaks with intense energy, saying that he can't believe that he would send Rierus to her death. And that's why he ended up staying at this moment. The silver-haired man looks pleased. He says it's good to see this kind of attitude that they're displaying. With that said, the silver-haired man explains he's here to gather soldiers, and for them to understand, a soldier's duty is to obey. He continues, stating that they will accept a knight's orders without question. They will trust in the honor and power of a knight, and that's all they need to do. In other words, they need to listen. And with that, the young man shouts, telling them to prepare themselves immediately because they're about to enter the portal. He instructs each of them to retrieve their respective equipment and prepare themselves. Meanwhile, at the yellow portal of the Shangjiron station, time passes and everyone is there, fully armored. The old man continues, mentioning that the equipment is quite heavy, but it's top-notch gear. He's still impressed, and speaking to the young man beside him, he mentions that all of this equipment is of rare rank, and that for him, certainly, each piece costs over 10 million wands. This is gear meant for a team. Gear that C and D rank hunters could never dream of using. But the strangest thing of all, so our hero is standing there, completely armorless. That punk from the last mission, whose name I still can't remember. He calls out to young Harry, asking her why our hero isn't wearing any armor. She comes over all innocent-like, and simply states that our hero's skin is tougher than any armor, and the other soldier seems a bit relieved, knowing our hero is that powerful. Surely, no catastrophe can happen with him around. And then, a few moments pass, and bam, a troll's head goes flying. The other soldiers, all decked out in their armor, are just standing there, trying to figure out what just happened. And then we see our little hero looking annoyed. He complains that he can't even hear the screams of these creatures. He continues yelling at them, shouting that they'll never be honorable warriors. Not even close. He just keeps laying into them, man. Of all the possible names, the protagonist is seriously enraged for some reason, man. Alright guys, before we start the video, I'm gonna ask you all to not only like the video, but to get hyped for it, man. Because now the video's getting hyped. Look, help me out here, man. So without further ado, let's get to I don't remember what this guy's called. Isn't he the knight from another world? Or something like that? Let's get to the continuation. In the last chapter, the Protector had created a kind of platoon of Templar soldiers. And above all those guys, he remembers stepping through a shimmering yellow portal with a surprisingly high difficulty ranking. In other words, this mission isn't going to be a walk in the park. The other recruits around him chatter nervously, mentioning that it sounds like they'll be fighting out in the open air. At least, that's what the mission briefing implied. His group is being referred to as mercenaries from a foreign tribe, from a land far, far away. It seems the place they've been teleported to is in the midst of a brutal civil war between two tribes, and they have to choose a side. The other recruits are understandably confused. This mission was supposed to be about helping a non-player character. In other words, it should have been a simple faction mission, not one where they're forced to pick sides in a war. The old guy under all that armor, He trails off. He continues, explaining that the real challenge here, the biggest problem, is figuring out which of the two factions will be easier to deal with. But then, in the next moment, a soldier points and shouts, "Monster, incoming!" And from his perspective, we see it's not just one monster, but an entire army. And folks, these aren't just any monsters. They're some kind of massive, incredibly strong orcs. And just like that, in the blink of an eye, our hero's troop is completely surrounded by these green behemoths. Strangest thing is, it's just that these orcs, can speak human language, man. He presses them, demanding to know who they are. Or rather, who the little guy's tribe is. So the orc walk continues, explaining that this territory belongs to his tribe, the Battle Axe tribe. And how dare they show up here, unannounced? They shall be labeled as
invaders.
The onlookers watch this heated exchange, completely baffled by what's going on. Meanwhile, the little guy is fuming, for some reason yet to be explained. In the next scene, Harry notices the little guy's simmering rage. She continues in a friendly tone to ask our hero if they should continue with the mission. For now, our hero, struggling internally with the decision, simply tells her to do as she sees fit. In the next scene, Harley begins to speak. She goes on to explain that they are a team of mercenaries. She mentions that they came here because they were promised a reward for helping a tribe. The orc general looks confused. He doesn't understand what mercenaries are. Then, he remembers that he's supposed to be expecting an outsider, the one his chief had told him about. Suddenly, the orc general lets out a crazed yell. He tells them all to follow him to his tribe's main village. And this whole time, while the young girl was chatting with the orc, the protagonist was still fuming, absolutely seething with rage. Hara herself, watching the whole scene unfold, voices her thoughts. She has a bad feeling about all of this. And once again, time passes. Quite a bit of time passes, folks. Until finally the hero's party comes face to face with the leader of all the orcs, right then and there. The chief of the War Axe tribe remarks that the mercenaries sent to him seem to be much weaker than he expected. But since he can't do anything about it, he's just going to accept it, right? And like all orcs are crazy, he starts screaming at the mercenaries, telling them to help him and destroy the Battle Axe tribe. The orc general looks like a lost little lamb. Man, off with the king, Margarita Sheridovia, and gentlemen, our little hero, realizing this guy's been babbling on about honorable and divine matters, gets even more furious. Meanwhile, the orc general was going on about the language of angels. My apology to those of you who might be a little upset by this, but I couldn't hold back, and neither could our hero. He says he can't listen to this nonsense anymore, to all this garbage. The orc leader realizes he's been interrupted, and not only that, but something very sensitive has been said about him. He demanded to know who dared speak those words. At that moment, our hero approached the orc leader. He asked if the orc had been talking about honor, about defying the king. He scoffed. As if. The orc leader roared in fury. "You savages dare to even dream," he bellowed, "of something you're not worthy of, something you don't deserve." After that bold statement, needless to say, the orc was beyond enraged. But the confrontation ended in a flash. Our hero swiftly decapitated the orc leader, and as a result, some of our hero's soldiers found themselves locked in combat. After all, if their leader had started a fight with such formidable opponents, they had no choice but to join the battle, since they're all high-ranking hunters. Yeah, and then Leonhardt flies into a rage. He starts screaming for everyone to hear, yelling that they're not honorable warriors. He continues to condemn all the orcs around him, saying they'll crawl and die like insects on the ground. And what we can gather from all this commotion, everyone, it might not seem like much, but it's emphasized here in the manhwa that the dragon lion is Leonhardt. Leonhardt is extremely racist against orcs, and so Leonhardt continues ranting, claiming that what he's doing is relentless justice. And everyone, what I'm about to tell you isn't exactly glorious to hear, isn't it? But basically, our little hero wiped out over 8 million orcs. I've just got one thing to say to you guys. I think I'm going to stop doing these things, you know? Yeah, man. Cheers, friend. In the next scene, the other orcs, realizing that their boss just kicked the bucket, they get extremely furious and charge straight at our hero's group. Since they're known enemies of the orcs, the background extras are just chilling and messing around. And at this moment, our little hero tells everyone to raise their shields. He tells them to form a circle, and block all the orc attacks. The poor old extras are cursing under their breath. He comments on the utter despair of the situation. After all, they're just D-rank hunters. And these poor old guys can barely handle themselves. They're just scared stiff. But they obey our hero, the prodigy. Many of them are probably wondering, how are we supposed to win against these orcs? They're definitely A-rank. Or even stronger, not to mention these creatures. These green-skinned monsters are utterly terrifying. But then, the moment the creature attacks one of the hero's soldiers, a background character realizes he blocked the attack! And no wonder. Just look at all the buffs this guy has. He's got every buff imaginable. For those of you who don't know what a buff is, it's basically a boost. Any kind of enhancement you can think of. Could be a boost to health, to defense, to anything. This guy's got boosts coming out of his ears. And so, the other soldiers, realizing they're sharing in some of Leonhardt's power, our hero's incredible strength, they find themselves fighting with renewed courage. And so, our hero continues, ordering them to raise their shields and push back against these foul creatures, these unholy beings, and above all, to wait for the right moment. To strike! And so, our hero's battle against the Templar soldiers and these orcs is getting absolutely insane, man. These background characters are seriously owning the battlefield, and they're just grinding down every single orc that dares to show its face. The orcs are getting so utterly destroyed that one of them starts praising and begging for help from their god of war. Needless to say, our little protagonist, hearing them pray to a pagan god, becomes absolutely furious. If he was mad before, he's completely lost it now. He just snaps. He even orders his soldiers to cut out the tongues of these creatures, so they can't speak such blasphemies. Our little guy is so enraged that he even finds his horse, his trusty steed, high atop his war horse. He begins to lay waste to the poor, unfortunate orcs. With all his might, he summons his two legendary weapons, one in each hand. He delivers swift judgment upon each of the orcs who dare stand against him. He vows to annihilate them all. And as time marches on, we see the last green-skinned orc fall to the ground. This signifies the end of the battle, at least for this tribe. The king of Lionheart beams with pride. He commands his Templar soldiers to let out a triumphant roar. They have achieved a glorious victory.
A young, somewhat confused soldier
Just stands there, thinking, hooray, hooray. In the following scene, the rare young woman catches Her Majesty's attention, and she continues to inquire, asking why he did that to the orcs. Our protagonist, looking a bit unhinged, responds to her, asking if she really needs a reason to annihilate orcs. The poor young woman is left dumbfounded, and asks about the mission they're supposed to undertake, since they're supposed to be helping some orc tribe or another. Hearing this, our hero declares that helping orcs is utter nonsense. He goes on, saying he'd rather throw himself into a fire than help those green savages. And furthermore, those abominations don't deserve an ounce of respect. Their very existence. They're evil beings. They don't deserve to live. He continues on, saying that they might appear brave. But how can anyone compare the aggression of a beast to the bravery of a knight? So, our hero keeps talking to the young girl, telling her not to treat them like humans. They're just disgusting beasts. And at that very moment, young Rari clearly understands that the king of Lionheart is extremely prejudiced. She continues to press the king, asking if there's even the slightest chance that a good orc could exist. Could there be one good orc out there? In response, King Lionheart sighs, clearly weary of this conversation. He's tired of the whole debate. He calls for Harry's attention and tells her to listen very carefully to what he's about to say. He emphasizes this point because a good orc is an oxymoron. A good orc is dead. YouTube. This is just entertainment. I'm not making any ideological statements here. For goodness sake. No, don't flag me. YouTube. This is just a bit of dark humor, folks. In the next chapter, Rumarua tells us a story about the orcs, about the time a gate to the orc world opened on Earth. And so, countless orc survivors settled there. Earthlings were incredibly welcoming at first, even putting up a welcome sign with a little car. But then, they didn't adjust well to life on Earth, and they transformed into demonic humans. The orcs became a serious problem for Earth. And at that moment, the story shifts back to our hero's perspective, back in that fantasy world. Hidden in the bushes, we see Jang Spinner. He declares that his destiny has been fulfilled. He then tells the hero that if the TV is completed, there's a chance for truly efficient annihilation. We then see the hero and a young girl. Now, for some reason, they're all wearing these bandanas on their heads, just to cover their hair. Plato continues, mentioning that he'll leave this task to Jang Spinner over there. And the young girl just stands there, lost in her own thoughts. Then Jang Spinner starts straining and contorting himself until finally he lets go and launches something rather strange. Toward the river, Harry mentions that what Jang Spinner just did looks a lot like poop. And Plato tells him not to say such disgusting things. And as you can see, this is some kind of material, extremely radioactive. Harriet fidgets nervously and asks the wizard if he really thinks, that is the right thing to do. Is this really okay? She presses. She argues that dumping radioactive material into the Orc's river could hardly be considered honorable conduct for a knight. And once again, the protagonist flashes that unsettling, slightly crazed grin. He addresses both Harriet and Jake Spinner, catching their attention. Fighting those green-skinned beasts, he says, isn't war. It's not even a battle. It's pest control. Harriet stares at him, knowing full well that he's being incredibly racist with the orcs. Meanwhile, Pretender continues asking what kind of hunter worries about honor while doing his job. He reiterates his point. A good orc is a dead orc. That's the only way. As this conversation unfolds, we see an orc battling another of his own kind. One lands a solid blow to the other's head. As the camera pulls back, we see it's a competition between two orcs. The warrior standing victorious, axe in hand, is the victor of this duel. The orc warrior states that his opponent perished fighting bravely, and he declares that the god of war will surely send him to the eternal battlefield, a fitting end for an orc warrior. With that said, the orc decides it's time to make a toast to victory, and his celebratory drink is none other than a refreshing gulp of river water. The poor old fellow dips his bucket into the river and fills it with the murky water. As he takes the last gulp, he notices a strange taste, slightly metallic. He shrugs it off, figuring it's probably just the leftover taste of ketchup from earlier. Some time passes, and we see the poor old orc clutching his stomach in pain. He feels like his insides are twisting and churning, writhing in agony. The poor creature can barely stand the pain. He manages to weakly murmur the tribe healer's name. He stumbles out of his dwelling. The scene widens to reveal the entire orc tribe. Everyone is collapsed on the ground, writhing in pain. The elderly healer, witnessing this catastrophic scene, lets his walking stick clatter to the ground. He stares in disbelief. None of this makes any sense. There's no sign of a curse or any dark magic at play. The poor old healer is utterly lost and confused. And so, just then, we see a rather crazed shriek. Someone shouts about honor for Leon. And with that, the little tyke runs right over the orc commander. The kid shows absolutely no mercy. He then orders his band of warriors to eliminate every last one of the pests, to leave no survivors. All the warriors comply, thinking this is just free XP. After all, most of the orcs are already down, so as expected, the battle against the weakened orcs is a complete massacre. Eventually, the entire battle axe tribe is wiped out. The system announces that every species of orc is now an enemy of humanity, and our heroes group has become a common enemy of all the orcs. And how did this happen? Because of the system's other mission, for our heroes team, to get rid of all the orcs in Raria. Then Raria is surprised and tells His Majesty that the mission has changed, or rather what it was originally. He thinks this is brilliant. It's wonderful, in fact, since the mission is finally improved. Next, Silver calls for the attention of all of Leonhardt's soldiers. Little Silver continues, saying that it's finally time for them to defend light and justice. But then, in the next frame, that orc, the sorcerer, the one Silver had stopped with his horse, starts screaming relentlessly. Our hero turns around, trying to figure out what the commotion is all about. The orc, understanding the situation perfectly, explains that everything that happened to his tribe is the fault of the blonde man standing before him. He demands of our hero, "Was it you who cursed our water?" He spits, emphasizing our tribe. He calls him a wretch, a deplorable excuse for a human. And to top it all off, he calls our hero a coward. In response, Silver simply turns back to the orc and says, "You fool. How dare a beast like you speak to me of honor?" He scoffs. "It's a disgrace just to look at you." He sneers, calling the orc a lowly creature. This sprout's completely bonkers, folks. He says, "I'm at least going to give the little orc a chance well, how should I put this? Get to squirm his way out of this, to redeem himself. And he still calls him a disgusting beast? Man, I almost let a really bad word slip out. In response, the orc continues to yell, calling the hero a miserable, arrogant. And once again, the orc is going full-on lost sheep mode. Love it! To this, our hero slams his knightly spear and lands a solid blow to the creature's stomach. But even then, the poor old orc says, everything the hero has done is too late, since Gokurok is coming. And then we can see that abysmal aura kind of swirling, almost forming a circular portal. Seeing that abomination, she gets scared and asks His Majesty what that could be, what that thing is supposed to be. And so, our hero explains that it's some kind of offering. It's like a desperate act by those beasts. And then from that portal, a gigantic arm emerges, completely green, and the system announces that a hidden mission has appeared for them. Eliminate Gokurok, the orc god of witchcraft. The following happens. The orc god begins to curl his index finger until it forms a perfect circle around his eye. And within this circle, he observes the little guy. He continues in his terrifying voice, saying that this creature cannot be spared, and that it most certainly deserves to die. And then, with lightning-fast speed, he launches a projectile toward the little guy. A tremendously powerful beam of light, and consequently an explosion erupts. The other soldiers there become quite worried about their majesty. But in the end, our hero is perfectly fine, completely unharmed. The creature, with its wide-eyed stare, is stunned. He remarks that an existence like this simply shielded our hero. The creature continues to question Lionheart, asking which god protects him. Despite all the questions, it seems our little protagonist only heard one thing, an essence similar to his own, and now the one speaking with a chilling tone is none other than our protagonist. He delivers a menacing speech about how dare this creature even compare itself to him, and above all else, how dare it compare itself to a god. He continues berating the orc's petty deities, calling them all sorts of names. My lord, he says, but with a venomous undertone. You know the type. And there his fury? The force is so strong it even shatters the collar of his shirt, completely shattering it. He simply grabs his holy sword, and our young hero and his horse charge forth, launching a fierce counterattack, a powerful counterattack. Against this orc god, our hero delivers a death blow to this unholy orc. In response, the god who we can only see, one eye and his right arm of, begins to rise, threatening a powerful attack against our hero. He calls our hero a lowly mortal and attempts to crush him with his gigantic fist. But before that can happen, we see a flash of light, signifying the cut our hero made on the god's fist, severing the god's hand completely. The rest of his arm, gone. The poor old god stares in disbelief at what just happened. More than anything, he's overwhelmed by pain. He's confused. The little deity is completely baffled, folks. After all, the attack didn't even land on his true body. It seems like what we're seeing is just a projection, or something similar. He wonders, why is he feeling pain? And the worst reaction of all comes from the goat. There she is, summoning her god. She realizes he's trying to steal a peek at the protagonist, literally taking a corsa from the protagonist, a humorous Brazilian slang. The poor god is completely clueless. Literally, farting in the flour, a humorous Brazilian slang. Suddenly, the god becomes absolutely terrified. His eyes lock onto the protagonist's sword, and in a flash, he understands everything. He recognizes it as the legendary Holy Sword of Light. And he knows exactly who the protagonist is. The legendary Orc Slayer, the Demon Destroyer, the one and only knight who survived that nightmarish world. The poor god is so scared, he's frozen in fear. He doesn't know what to do. He turns and runs. He figures he'll get the protagonist later. The poor old fool. Literally, the poor old man from the floor coming. His god is recoiling before a mere mortal. He just stands there, completely baffled by what's happening. Oh man! You almost feel sorry for the orc. The poor guy's practically got snot running down his face. I genuinely pity the orc. What can you do, the poor thing? And to make matters worse, our protagonist keeps taunting him, saying his little god is completely useless. Poor orc. He looks at the protagonist with a mixture of fear, anger, and frustration. It's all there. Seriously, he even tries to fight back, but our hero just lands a perfect blow, completely detaching himself from reality, and the little guy's reaction says it all. This guy's dropping some serious truth bombs. Gentlemen, in the next scene, the system appears to everyone, announcing that the mission was a complete success. The strangest thing of all is that each of them received incredibly valuable rewards. The system explains that when fighting as a knight alongside the hero, each of them will gain a 30% damage boost and a 20% increase in physical attack resistance. The rank a hunter, seeing this, is completely blown away, because receiving these kinds of physical buffs is incredibly valuable. Only tanks can equip this artifact, he explains. The other players erupt in excitement at the power they've just received, but then someone mentions it's a shame. It only works against orcs. In the next moment, the main character lets out a yell and tells everyone to gather the spoils of war. It's the victor's right! He shouts. No sooner said than done. Everyone races to grab the best loot. The spoils of victory gleam enticingly. Harry quickly catches the main character's attention and asks him a question. What are we going to do with that? He gestures. Giant hand. Just then, Jenga Spinner appears. A hologram flickers to life before him. The image of the god of war himself. A god residing in a heavenly realm speaks to Protinia. The god explains that the severed hand of that orc is an incredibly valuable artifact. The god continues telling Protinia that he can use the Holy Grail to absorb the mana from the monster's hand, and by doing so he can gain immense power, a power that will significantly boost his own abilities. Pratanya takes his holy grail, the chalice, and simply by pointing it at the severed hand, he swiftly drains all of its mana. Or rather, he completely absorbs everything. Protina pauses, lost in thought. He realizes he can feel a power within him, a power similar to that of a god. And so, the little guy continues on, saying he can't bring himself to, the existence of this god, since they don't worship other creatures either, other creations. And to the little guy, there's no other explanation, other than this being just a malevolent force that must be annihilated. So, just then, a goddess starts talking to the little guy, getting his attention. At that moment, our hero quickly changes his demeanor and starts speaking cordially to his goddess. The goddess explains that she came here to talk to him because she needs him to make a decision. The goddess mentions that she believes she can restore the true power of a sacred myth with this power he just absorbed. Or where did this come from? He's completely awestruck. Meanwhile, in the divine realm, the god of war is badgering the little guy to choose the sword. Choose the sword, he insists. A goddess tells him to shut up and calls him a scoundrel. The goddess addresses the little guy and says, yes, and that she will respect his choice, whatever it may be. The little guy takes a moment to think. He recalls that there are 4 sacred items: the sacred spear and sword, the holy grail, and the lion heart. He continues pondering, thinking that right now, his power with the sacred sword is already a bit too extravagant. So he thinks it over and decides to choose to increase the power of the holy grade. With that done, the goddess gracefully grants our hero's request, and the healing artifact begins to evolve, becoming completely radiant, pulsing with divine energy. Doesn't look much different to me, folks, he thinks, but the protector is overjoyed. I think it's become much more powerful, he says to himself. As the ritual concludes, the young girl quickly gets his attention. He turns to her and asks if there's a problem. In response, Harry mentions that the little guy will want to see what just happened. Our hero, just by looking at Harry, immediately notices that something is missing, or rather, the ginger spinner is missing, and so, just as the young woman is about to explain what happened, someone cries out in agony. And then, we see that the ginger spinner has just apprehended our hero's soldiers, and the guy is furious. He yells at the robot, calling the ginger spinner a stupid boy. Well. The creature's got some nerve! As it turns out, our hero arrives in the middle of all the commotion. He's got a completely blank expression on his face. The hapless extra starts explaining things, and poor ginger spinner chimes in, saying that he was attacked out of nowhere. But the protector immediately tells the guy to shut up. Our hero tells him to choose his words carefully, unless he wants his tongue cut out. Our hero then tells him to pay close attention. Now this extra is so incredibly ordinary that he can't believe the protagonist is actually defending a robot. And just by talking back to our hero, who's obviously the king, right? He becomes absolutely furious and tells the guy to shut his mouth again. He still finds the whole situation absurd. How dare a mere extra try to speak so disrespectfully to a knight, especially one like Ginger Spinner? In the next scene, our hero asks Ginger Spinner what exactly happened, and the little robot explains that the guy is a grave robber. The extra is sweating bullets. He's standing there, clearly confused, playing dumb. He keeps saying it's all a lie, that the idiot, referring to someone, is mistaken, but then he corrects himself, saying it's all a misunderstanding caused by the little robot. Our hero is losing his patience. He declares that they'll see the truth once they look at everything he's carrying. So our hero orders Harry to search the extra's belongings. Poor Harry looks a bit surprised, but she follows the hero's orders. Judging by her reaction, she seems pretty experienced in this sort of thing. While Harry investigates, the guy is even searching the poor fellow's hair. Oh, the indignity. The other NPCs are just standing there watching, man. They're completely clueless about what's going on. Poor extra, he has no idea. And in the end, the G-Spinner was right, and Harriet manages to find a unique item. What a lucky find. And so, as she unwraps it, she realizes it's the heart of the great orc, Warrior, and that, the most valuable item within the orc portal. So, Leonhardt keeps questioning the extra about why he did this. These trivial things, since misplacing spoils of war is a very serious offense. In response to this, the old extra, he frantically insists it's all a misunderstanding. He yells desperately, swearing he didn't steal anything. He would never do such a thing. But in response, our hero, a man of few words, simply rips the man's arm off. The blow is so swift and clean that the poor guy doesn't even realize his arm has gone flying. When the reality of the situation hits, the man screams at the top of his lungs. He's understandably freaking out. I mean, who wouldn't be, seeing your own arm lying on the ground? Our hero calmly explains that in this world, the laws and common sense are a little different from theirs. However, he's part of King Leonhardt's army. This means they don't follow the laws of this world. They answer to the laws of Leonhardt's realm. And so, our hero declares these as his laws. He continues addressing the crowd gathered around him. If they don't agree with his laws, they're welcome to leave. Those who steal or engage in any wrongdoing will have their hands cut off. Judging by the reactions of the onlookers, it's clear that these people from modern Earth are having a hard time accepting the hero's rules. From their perspective, his methods seem incredibly harsh. However, the enhancements they're receiving are out of this world. The poor guys. They probably think they just leveled up just because of those buffs. And because of that, the benefits were too good for them to just give up like this. So those little punks are all thoughtful now, huh? Since, in the first place, it was that ordinary guy who was stealing stuff. But then, after a lot of murmuring from various extras, another little extra shows up, stealing the scene, calling for His Majesty's attention, the King of Leonhardt. Since Gabriel was all tied up, Cobra told him to identify himself already. And so the guy says he's a soldier, and his name is Golda Sung. In my opinion, the best recruit the little guy found. After he introduces himself, the young boy asks why he caught the king's attention. Then the man in the robe continues, asking our hero if, by any chance, he would allow the thief to have his arm restored. Once again, our hero, a bit suspicious, asks why he wants him to do that. His arm back, since that would completely defeat the purpose of the punishment he received. Because the brat's request contradicts the reason for the protagonist's punishment, the brat continues, saying that he's well aware of this, but since they hold different ideals than the protagonist, and since Lord Leonhardt only just stated these rules, the brat continues saying it would be gracious if His Majesty would give another chance. To the commoner, our hero falls into deep thought. He realizes everything the brat said. Makes a lot of sense. And so our hero begins to pray to his holy grail. He continues, telling the thug who just robbed him that he should be grateful for having such rational companions. The next moment, our hero tilts the Holy Grail to a 45-degree angle, pouring the liquid inside, directly onto the thug's amputated hand. As the thug is bathed in the divine power, he can't believe what's happening. And just like that, in the blink of an eye, the thug's arm, which was just moments ago amputated, grows back completely. All the onlookers are completely stunned. Even the blood mage from the river is shocked, since not even high-ranking healers can regenerate a limb like that. The best they can do is to put back what was amputated back in its place. And from the little punk's perspective, the protagonist is a total monster. He can't believe someone could possess that kind of power. Next, our hero tells the thief he stole from to get his ugly mug out of there. He says he'll let the thief go this time because he respects the laws of their world. But he adds the thief has now lost all his rights. In response, the extra thanks the little hero and apologizes for committing such a horrible act. And once again, the silver-haired boy starts yelling, getting everyone's attention. He continues, stating that those who wish to remain a part of his army should stay where they are, and those who don't can take their share of the spoils and leave. The young man looks thoughtful for a moment, but then becomes incredibly enthusiastic. After all, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and so he declares that they need to seize this chance. No matter what, the silver-haired boy, seeing that many people have stayed, he becomes incredibly excited and announces that they will now begin their training. He goes on to say that he believes how well each of them will be able to endure the entire process. So before that, our little hero continues shouting, telling everyone to grab their spoilers, since they're about to leave. In the next scene, Harry gets the little guy's attention, and we see the little soldiers are all happy in the background. In the distance, Ori keeps asking Frodo questions, curious, wanting to know what the next training exercise will be. Our hero, with a big smile, explains that it's physical training. Time passes, and we see them emerge from the portal. They're back at the hero's base. Next, amidst the bustling crowd, an old man tries to catch Dae Sung's attention. He asks him what's been going on, since he's been out of sight lately. The old man wonders if perhaps Dae Sung participated in a portal raid, and then Dae Sung confirms it. He says he was itching for some action. As the two continue chatting, Rory suddenly shouts, grabbing everyone's attention. This woman here announces for all to hear that His Majesty the Lion Dragon Heart, is arriving, as well as the esteemed Templar Knight, Jango Spinner. We then see the silhouette of our protagonist, Pedro. And look! Jango Spinner is hovering right above the young ladies' heads. The guy on the tablet, the little silver plate, just sits there, congratulating everyone for passing. That test, a simple test, the silver plate, goes on to say they're all too weak to join his army. That's where our hero steps in. He believes that with hard work, anyone can succeed. The onlookers are stunned by his outburst. They're completely speechless. After all, the York portal test was supposed to be easy. Our hero continues, explaining that while he observed them fighting, he noticed several problems. The biggest issue, their own bodies. The poor onlookers are confused. What does he mean by their bodies? Considering they're only C-rank hunters. The headmaster continues, explaining that in light of this troubling situation, he's decided to implement a rigorous physical training regimen. And so from this day forward, they will all undergo intense training, outlined in the training manual of his royal army. The poor kid just stands there trying to imagine what kind of crazy training this could be. He even wonders if it's something like that brutal training from Rambo he once saw. And so our hero explains that this body training the headmaster's talking about obviously refers to muscle training. To achieve this, they need to train their muscles to the point of exhaustion, pushing their bodies to their absolute limits and surpass them. Broda goes on to mention a Templar Knight, or rather Sir Gratus, the Giant Slayer. That crazy guy created this training manual. He says of the Templar Knight, "This Sir Gratus, you see, he had a motto. Humans grow stronger the more they are beaten." The protagonist, with a slightly crazed grin, adds, "Sir Gratus' words were words of wisdom." The background characters, realizing what this means, look on in disbelief. Wait, we're going to be beaten? And so, immediately after, Leonhardt goes completely berserk. He declares that they need to work much harder than farmers. And that's precisely why, for more efficient training, the great Raz being shared these wise words. Simply put, the training is based on beating and breaking down the soldiers' bodies, and then healing them. This way, their muscles will not only become more resilient, but their visual perception will also improve, in an attempt to avoid further attacks. And now things are really getting interesting, gentlemen, because our hero tells each of them to pulverize one another. So our hero begins the training, and tells them all to beat each other senseless, until every muscle in their bodies tears in their fists shatter. He even mentions, it's better than breaking all your bones, too. He's not really sure about all this. The onlookers are completely panicked. They say this is absolutely crazy and definitely wrong. Someone needs to tell the little guy that if they keep this up, their bodies won't be able to handle it. In response, our hero says, so what? It's no big deal. After all, in the next moment, he summons his sacred treasure, the little silver plate. He addresses the onlookers, telling them to consider themselves lucky. The person before them is the guardian of a sacred treasure, and simply by revealing it, the kid's wound begin to heal instantly. Even the old man is surprised. This can only mean one thing. This is going to be a brutal beatdown, but they'll all be healing themselves instantly. This is incredible. Gentlemen, and now, the protein drink. He explains how the Holy Grail works, the one I just mentioned. Basically, just being near it heals you. But there's a limit to this healing. Unless they drink it, they'll only regenerate muscles and set their bones. For more serious injuries, they need a swig of the Holy Grail. So our hero gives them 5 hours to break as much as they can of their own bodies, push their limits. And one important detail, it's every man for himself here, no teams. Every man for himself. Just as the instructor is about to leave, he adds one more thing. If anyone is still standing, after 5 hours, he'll personally beat them down himself. In the next scene, the instructor leaves the training grounds. He mentions that their instructor will be Ginger Spinner. Time passes and the trainees are left to stare at each other, wondering what they should do. Old Pop from Gosung is there, grinning, with his little buddy Crown Prince beside him. Suddenly, Ginger Spinner, announces that another slow brawl is about to begin. He's laying down the law, making sure everyone knows what's what. He's not asking, he's telling. Think whip-cracking authority. Gentlemen, he makes a suggestion, a strong one, to everyone present. Start fighting, now. Because if they don't, things are about to get a whole lot worse. Deadly worse. And now, just like that, everyone feels a sudden intense pressure. A palpable shift in the air. It's like the energy of a spinning top and an action movie combined. All hell breaks loose. The fighting starts instantly. Punches are thrown. It's a full-on brawl. Blows are landed and received. It's brutal. Man, it's absolute chaos. Gosung is stuck in the middle of this insane free-for-all, completely bewildered, unsure what to do. Then, as if a light bulb goes off in his head, he starts yelling, "This is madness! This is pure insanity!" Just to teach him a lesson, he got socked right in the kisser. And the soldier's training routine went something like this. Gentlemen, at 9 o'clock in the morning, we have the Grata Army training, the Steel Skin Project, and at midday, things get wild, gentlemen. 'Cause lunch is just salt and sugar water. The poor recruits showed up, you see, ready to receive their midday meal, and they see this giant vat of salt and sugar water? The recruits kept asking Harry what this huge tub of water was all about. Harry had to quickly explain that it was their lunch. Salt and sugar water. The poor recruits just stood there, completely dumbfounded. Those poor guys. Gentlemen, it seems this lunch is straight out of the Grata Soldier's Handbook, meaning soldiers are only fed enough to survive, barely enough to keep them going. They'll only get a decent meal once they become true soldiers. At 1 o'clock, tactical training begins. And this training is insane, gentlemen. The little guy, Pritina, tells us to divide into groups of 5 while he's going to run us down with his horse. Are you kidding me? Long story short, it was pure suffering. So at 8 o'clock tonight, they can sleep soundly, or rather, they can pass out. And this is the hellish training to become a soldier. The poor, envious souls were only able to endure this training thanks to the care of young Harry, since she would come by with a large pot of potatoes and sweet potatoes, calling it their midnight snack. Their midnight snack, the poor old guys would cry, stuffing their faces with potatoes. But obviously, gentlemen, this was all just part of the lion's plan. However, the hunters couldn't know about the protégé's dirty tactic, since his role is to be the executioner and not be a goody two-shoes. Time passes. We see young Hugo diligently training. He's practicing his punches, one after the other, until he's completely exhausted. He comments that the shield is much heavier than he expected. And also, he needs to be much stronger to wield the sword. Because of this, the stances he can take in a battle formation with the shield are quite limited. More time passes. He continues to train in his full armor. The little guy keeps practicing until his mentor shows up and tells him he's doing it all wrong. The poor guy's about to jump out of his skin. He almost messed his pants, man. He quickly turns around and sees His Majesty standing right there. The kid tells him to keep practicing. He tells the kid to correct his posture and thrusting again. So Kung Fu Jr. gets ready and unleashes another ferocious thrust. He just stares at the little guy, waiting for him to say something. And what does our hero say? That it's wrong again. Our hero grabs the kid's shield and lifts it up, saying, "This is how you hold a shield. What you're doing is a disgusting habit of dropping your shield when you thrust." The instructor continues, emphasizing that he must maintain his shield position. Holding his ground, he needs to ensure the safety of his ally. Protecting his ally's right flank is another crucial duty he must perform in formation. Because the young trainee continues explaining there's a rule. Never lower your shield, even if you can't see anything. Gong Sung is a bit confused. He asks the trainee why this is necessary. In response, the lion instructor explains that a shield out of position creates a gap. A gap means an opening. Gus then asks His Majesty about these tactics. He explains they are meant for shield-bearing soldiers, to halt the enemy's advance, while the knights charge forward to finish them off. The silver-haired man remarks, "Exactly! The hammer and anvil tactic. It's the only way." And that's precisely what he's using. But then a bloody figure interjects. The problem is, your opponents are monsters. Faced with this, he declares, "I don't believe there's a single creature that can be defeated using this formation." He pauses for a moment, letting it sink in. Then he demands, "How dare you try to lecture me on fighting otherworldly beings?" Poor Gunsung quickly denies it, stammering, That's not what I meant. I wasn't trying to do that at all." Then our hero says, "The monsters I see from the portals that he enters, there were a lot of them in his old world too. But the truth is, the monsters from the portals in this world are child's play compared to the ones back in his world." He mentions that back there were giants over 70 feet tall, trolls that could regenerate endlessly, and multi-headed serpents. There were even dragons that could level a mountain with a single swipe of their claws. And because of that, it takes various hunting methods to even stand a chance against these monsters. The teacher continues to explain that adaptation skills of the people end up increasing, since knights also need to get used to unexpected situations. And that's what these things can only be obtained from real life experiences. And our hero goes on to say that's why he teaches his soldiers only one thing: to be well balanced. It's a necessary trait for any knight. All of this is necessary to increase a person's chances of surviving in this chaotic zone. And that's why Leah says that all he needs to do here is to hone this one skill. The young soldier looks thoughtful. He continues questioning our hero, saying he couldn't possibly achieve anything more than this. Seeing this, our silver-haired protagonist realizes the soldier is genuinely distressed. He keeps asking if he dreams of becoming a knight. The poor soldier continues, questioning how a mere commoner could ever dare to dream of knighthood. He even asks if only aristocrats can become knights. Hearing this, our hero is stunned. He can't believe it. He tells the soldier not to taint this new world With the ridiculous logic of his old one, knighthood isn't something only nobles can achieve. Gabriel is a bit confused. He asked the old man for more details. Our hero explains that a person who willingly walks the path of hardship. As a sacred duty, a person who protects the people and courageously defends what's right. A person who swears eternal loyalty to the gods and to the people. Anyone can be a knight by making these divine promises. The old man adds that if he has the courage and the character to take on this duty, surely he will be worthy of respect. A huge grin spreads across the little boy's face. His ambition has taken a new direction. He absolutely has to become a knight. Time passes, and the story shifts once again to the Magic Tower, affiliated with the United States. A demonic voice suddenly booms throughout the place, ranting and raving, cursing and swearing, calling the mage nothing but a pathetic remnant of a bygone era. The little mage is stunned. Realizing that the entity he'd been communicating with has returned, he exclaims that he had faith, that it would come back. Then the poor demon composes itself and tells the idiot to show some respect. The poor little mage quickly bows. The pitiful thing, the demon continues, saying that it will teach him true knowledge, but in exchange, he must bow down and offer tributes. The little mage quickly realizes the entity's voice has completely changed. It's like a different person is speaking. But the entity continues talking anyway. He instructs the little mage to first cast a spatial transfer spell on a crystal. And as soon as the mage creates this crystal, the demon will be blasted into space in case of an emergency. I believe this magic will be a sort of espionage device with a time bomb, just in case things go south. The little mage is confused. He thought the crystal was supposed to bring the entity down to their world. The demonic entity is getting angry, with the little mage calling him crazy, asking him how he could possibly kill himself by willingly coming to his world. So the entity continues, telling the old man to listen carefully. Very well, since he refuses to set foot on the planet where that monster lives. He's talking about the little hero, folks. But the little mage, hearing this, can't even comprehend it. Who in the world could be stronger than that demon? Then the demon declared that he'll figure out a way to get rid of this pest once and for all. He says this because now is the perfect opportunity. After all, our hero doesn't have his own army yet. And then the demon gives the old man a mission. He wants him to make sure he joins, to throw this crystal or whatever the heck it is. What the heck? Into that portal where the little guy's about to go. And the demon of that crystal gets so freaked out that he's practically begging the universe for the little guy to die this time. The next chapter arrives on the day of the graduation ceremony of the Pantheon Guild's army. And amidst all the festivities, we see someone asking the little guy if he's really going into that portal with just those newbies. Then we hear a voice, which sounds like it belongs to our hero, saying that's exactly what he's doing. And the person questioning the little guy was none other than Harry. And only now does she finally understand that neither she nor Sir would be joining him. In the next scene, that punk shows up, the one who's some kind of director of the Hunters Association of Korea. But the poor guy's only a C rank, right? He tags along, looking a bit worried, telling the young woman it looks like he's going to have to do all the observation work himself this time. And the young woman, Harry, just wishes her boss good luck. In the following scene, the protagonist calls his soldiers to attention. He continues, saying that his soldiers have proven their worth during the last 4 weeks of their training. He goes on to say that he won't waste their time with long speeches, because now it's time for them to show everything they've learned, and his duty today is to enter the portal and complete it swiftly. The silver-haired man continues, mentioning that normally they wouldn't use challenge portals of this caliber. Then our hero speaks passionately. Once you're in there, you'll understand what it means to be a soldier of King Leonhardt. He continues, the moment you step through that portal, you will all stand before the deities, whom you will serve. He finishes. Now go out there and give it your all, Revertina shouts. In response, the entire army lets out a single fervent war cry, the Pantheon. And so the people who entered that yellow portal, besides the 49 hunters, with an average rank of D, included a hunter from the Hunters Association. That punk, the one who was talking to Harry, and of course the draconian lion, Leonhardt. Next up, the genius spinner starts beeping, spouting his gibberish. Beep, 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 beep. And Little Root is there, chatting with him, telling him not to worry about a thing. While she's trying to calm him down, to soothe Spinner's anxieties, he starts to fidget nervously. A feeling tells him something's wrong. He continues, explaining that according to his calculations, Her Majesty Leonhardt, along with 49 soldiers and one observer, making a total of 51 people, should have entered the portal. He starts counting along with Sir Spinner and becomes confused. What's the problem, he asks. In response, Sir Spinner explains, actually, 52 people went through. He shows a hologram to Hari, urging him to look closely. And there, on the screen, using his infrared vision, he spots a cloaked figure, entering alongside our hero's entourage. Hari watches, observing everything. She's trying to figure out who this newcomer is. In the next scene, Jean, the Jean spinner, rushes towards the portal. He's trying to warn the hero. He moves so fast, he practically destroys everything in his path, and quickly enters the portal. Hari follows right behind Jean. She wants to help our hero too. But as she tries to enter, she slams into an invisible force field. She falls to the ground with a thud. The other bystanders are confused and slightly embarrassed for her. In the next moment, Hari quickly gets back on her feet. She tries to understand what just happened. Then she notices something truly terrifying. If she can't get in, something terrible must have happened. The portal, once yellow, has turned a menacing red, a sign of complete and utter destruction. This red portal is second only to the dreaded black portal in terms of danger. In this story, this phenomenon is known as a floating portal. Floating portal! It's an incredibly rare event. Meanwhile, inside the portal, chaos reigns supreme. A brutal war rages between creatures and people. At a glance, she notices something else. Strange movements from other soldiers. These soldiers aren't with Pratina's squad, since judging by the uniform, it's quite different. But then, in the next frame, we see Leonhardt's cavalry arrive. Many of the soldiers, seeing the catastrophic scene before them, are stunned and confused. They're completely shaken because these creatures are demons. Witnessing all of this, the protector simply stands there, calmly and coolly assessing the situation. In the following scene, our hero begins to give his orders. He commands all of his soldiers to raise their shields, explaining that it's a magic square. The hero's army begins to move, forming a defensive line. And this formation is known as the Leonhardt Testudo. In the next scene, the lion commands his soldiers to advance. Meanwhile, the poor Hunter Association guy is just standing there, totally confused. He was supposed to be an observer, and he's ended up in some demonic portal. He's trying to figure out why these soldiers aren't even thinking about running away. And more importantly, if these people aren't terrified. But then all of a sudden, the system activates for our unlucky observer. And what happens? He receives all the buffs that the little hero is giving to his squad. This guy is ridiculously overpowered. He's way too strong. He was already tough as nails. Now, my friend, at this moment, some demons detect strange movements from another army outside, and they all head towards it to attack this new army. But this time, each of the soldiers is properly trained and knows exactly what they're doing on the battlefield. And there, when the creatures clash with the soldiers, their attacks are completely repelled by the shields. And truly, gentlemen, the pressure is immense. The little hunter himself is just observing to see how they perform in this test. They're completely stunned. Even a B-rank hunter would have been injured by that hellhound's attack. Gabriel tries to figure out what in the world happened during those 4 weeks of training with Lionheart's squad. Meanwhile, the little guy is out there, decimating the enemy. He tells his team to press forward. Their mission is to keep the pressure on, force the enemy to react. And most importantly, they can't let those creatures get the upper hand. They have to keep attacking, find an opening, and deliver the final blow. The battle rages on. Blow after blow lands, but then, eventually, the Hunters Association Goatman notices the strange commotion on the battlefield. And to his horror, he realizes it's a demonic troll. And not just that, but a whole horde of hideous beasts charging towards him. The Goatman from the Heroes Association is immediately struck with panic. Desperation sets in as he thinks they won't be able to withstand the attack of this creature. But then, we see things from the soldier's perspective. They remark, on the moment he takes a direct hit from that demonic troll, a wicked blow. And compared to the kid's attack, this Goatman's attack is nothing. They're confident they can block any attack, no matter how many times he hammers on their defenses. In that split second, as the creature lowered its guard, a Ginger Spinner appears wielding his .50 caliber machine guns. He unleashes a barrage of bullets, peppering the creature with one shot after another. Witnessing Spinner's sudden arrival, he's momentarily confused. Why is Spinner here? He was specifically ordered to stay back. But in the heat of battle, there's no time for questions. He's just grateful for his pilot's support. They executed a perfect block, and thanks to their flawless teamwork, he's able to completely obliterate the demonic troll. And that's not all. Our hero then casts a menacing glare towards the enemy team, or rather the friendly enemy team, the little demons. They realize that their troll, their secret weapon, Yinga, was destroyed. They were left completely shaken. With no other choice, the little demons ran for their lives, straight back to the depths of hell. And so eventually, the battle ended. The soldiers of this world were completely out of breath and also deeply shaken. They had just survived a demonic battle, the likes of which had never been seen before. And so, All the fear and anxiety were replaced by joy and an incredible sense of victory. The people of the kingdom approached the young hero, overflowing with gratitude. At this moment, the system was revealed to our hero's entire team, and now their mission is to protect the kingdom from a demon invasion. They have 1 week to complete this mission. The other soldiers read the mission briefing and immediately panic.
They have to defeat the demon king?
One of the hero's soldiers gets his attention. "Your Majesty," he says, "we have terrible news. The portal they were supposed to use to leave Zia has vanished, which means they're stuck here. They can't go home." In response, our hero tells the soldier to calm down. There's no need to panic. Not yet, anyway.
Time passes and our young hero
Stares at the spot where there's the portal. He becomes lost in thought, contemplating the situation. And just then, the Giga Spinner arrives and speaks to our hero. He goes on to explain that an unexpected event has occurred. Our hero's mission has been compromised by an outsider. With this new information, our hero now understands why the Giga Spinner entered that portal with them. Our hero then turns to his army and asks, "Can someone please explain what's going on?" To him, just then, Gosung steps forward, saying that he can explain everything. He explains that this phenomenon is a floating portal. A floating portal. To summarize the information, he explains that it's a phenomenon where a portal's difficulty suddenly increases out of nowhere. Because of this, a person can't leave. Without fully completing the mission, he analyzes the situation and quickly realizes that this isn't a coincidence. Observing this, Roberta mentions that there will be no change of plans. They will complete the portal mission. Hatsung is a bit startled. He asks His Majesty if he's certain about this decision, since some demon kings might appear. In response, the Protector mentions that he is the King of Lionheart, and he has already subdued 2 demon kings and over 30 archdemons. The rookie soldiers, witnessing the young hero's feats, are absolutely ecstatic. Man, you just stand there, completely awestruck by the hero. But the young hero continues on, lost in his own thoughts. He had accomplished this before, back when he wielded immense divine power in his previous world. But now, he couldn't guarantee victory against this demon king. However, he steels himself thinking, a knight must be steadfast and dependable. No matter the odds, his comrades place their trust in him. And that's what truly mattered in this situation. And so, time marches on. Meanwhile, we see that American maid with his crystal ball, and it looks like he's having a real good laugh. The guy's ecstatic, and for good reason. The demon continues, saying the Protector is weak, that he's weaker than he used to be. He goes on to say that our hero is ultimately nothing more than a foolish human, given this situation. The mage asks if he can begin the creature's ritual down there in his world. But the little demon is still afraid. He says, "No, don't do that. Are you crazy?" The demon then composes himself and says there's no reason for him to do something like this. The mysterious figure mentions a creature, one that the demons of lust have been working on for a century. Once that thing awakens, he laughs like a demon. Without a doubt, he'll be able to annihilate that little sprout. And at the end of this scene, we can see the rather flirtatious glances of a young woman. The kingdom of Espero, a peaceful kingdom that prides itself on its history, spanning millennia, but this kingdom finds itself in a rather precarious situation. That's because demons relentlessly invade its cities, and thus only the palace remains standing. And it was then that the last survivors of this palace clung to their last rays of hope and fought for their lives. Then we see God sung. Note, is this a name? If so, keep it capitalized. If it's a title, consider revising to the God sung. Mentioning that this is about a theme, the little sprout seeing this word, consider replacing little sprout with a more natural term like youngster or child, is a bit confused about what it means. This topic, as time passes, they explain what it's all about to our hero, and then our hero completely understands what's going on. He points out that all these portals have their own unique scenarios. But Gusung mentions that this particular portal is completely different. Unlike the others, it has a time limit. He explains that usually a dungeon break only happens when the portal's points are neglected. But with a timed mission, the portal will close as long as the mission's conditions are met. And so the little guy ponders, trying to figure out what to do. In this crazy situation, the next moment, our hero gets the attention of the Goat Man, who's just there to observe, a representative from the Hero Association. And immediately the Goat Man states that he is there at His Majesty's service. In response, our hero says he wasn't planning on making his debut yet, but due to the urgency, it would be a problem if he had to fight alongside GG. He poses another question. Would it be a problem for the others if he had to fight alongside GG? Would it be an issue for Spinner as well? And there the goat man from the association, seeing that he will be going all out, tells our hero that there won't be any problem. He can do whatever he wants. And there, the association's newbie continues, mentioning that the president of the Hero Association has already addressed all of this and has taken everything into account. And that means one thing, gentlemen. Those soldiers have been promoted, and those guys over there. I'm so happy about this news. But then our hero raises another point. He asks the others what they think about secret missions. The newbies there start trembling in fear. And the association representative asks our hero what he's planning. So our hero announces that he's thinking about taking down the demon king of this world. Time passes. We see a magnificent building, a grand structure in the medieval style. Very impressive. Man. Inside, someone is speaking, their voice booming. As expected, they say. The demonic energy from that troll. I didn't yield good results. We see it's the young man from before. He continues, I believe this amount will only guarantee a brief connection to the pantheon. Then abruptly, he begins speaking to his goddesses. First, he asks, how is my dearest Aliana? Aliana, the goddess replies. She asks, does the little sprout perhaps while? All right, he says. He quickly confirms her statement. He goes on to explain that it took him a while to notice, but he senses a different kind of natural energy coming from this portal. In response, the goddess mentions that he shouldn't be able to sense it so easily. Not with a human body. She goes on to say that this energy has seeped into this world very naturally. And with that, our hero understands completely. Lost in thought, he contemplates the implications. This energy, he realizes, is incredibly powerful. Powerful enough that even he couldn't detect it at first. Such immense power. It can only mean two things. Either a demon king, or perhaps even a demon lord. The goddess continues, telling our hero that she finds this very strange. Such a powerful being should possess a much stronger energy signature. The goddess goes on, explaining that another deity from the pantheon wants to speak with the little guy. She tells her champion that this other god, Ple, wishes to investigate this world. This can only mean one thing. She must have sensed something very bizarre here. Then we see a new goddess appear. I don't even know who this is, he says. Whoa, who's this lady? Did I forget about her? The goddess explains that because of this, they'll need more energy for him to summon her to this world. And the goddess, she continues, bringing up something rather peculiar. Gentlemen, she says, I'm sure our little prodigy knows exactly what he needs to do. And our hero simply nods in agreement, leaving everyone in suspense. A suspense that builds and builds, leading us to the Holy Grail. Time passes once more. Quite a bit of time, actually. And finally, we see a carriage. And who emerges from this carriage? None other than our hero's entourage. There's him, the King of Lionheart, and his 3 loyal servants. All 4 of them are greeted by a sharply dressed fellow. Most likely, I'd wager the palace butler, and this dapper gentleman's name is Farco. He assures them that he will attend to them with the abilities he possesses. He earnestly requests that all the knights follow him. Time passes, and our hero's troop journeys through a landscape that's a bit, how should I put this? Desolate. A gigantic castle eerily empty. In the midst of the silence, our little hero breaks the ice with the butler. He compliments the palace owners. Excellent taste in art. The butler beams and tells the little hero how polite he is. Then the butler launches into a history lesson, sharing stories about the place. He explains that Aspero Palace, it's a recounting of the kingdom's long history. The story spans from the very first Queen Flora all the way to the current Queen Beatrice. And so our hero's group continues chatting among themselves. He notices that all the female rulers are highly praised. Gosong even goes so far as to say that it seems like society here is matriarchal. Man, Platino says, just listening to these guys fawn over the politics of this kingdom. He makes a visibly irritated face, and so Platino starts scolding the others, telling them they've got a lot of nerve, gossiping about the royal family, especially since they're royal playboys themselves. In the next scene, the guards are deeply embarrassed. Our hero apologizes, but he can't resist a little dig. He points out that they brought these clueless guards due to the urgency of the situation. Madamusinho smoothly interjects, saying it's all right. These things happen. After a long walk, our hero's group arrives at the main chamber of the palace. Entering the hall with its massive doors, they see all the dignitaries of the kingdom, important-looking officials, sharply dressed nobles, lords and ladies, and of course, some heavily armored guards. Just then, a portly man approaches our hero, addressing him as Leonhardt. Cabrillo, the one who defeated the demonic ogre in battle, steps forward and introduces himself. He announces that he is the Duke, and also the kingdom's chancellor. He goes on to say that, due to the protagonist's triumph, In the recent battle, he will be decorated as a Knight of the Realm. He adds that with the Queen's permission, he would like to say a few words. But our hero is immediately suspicious, extremely distrustful. Our hero simply states that before that, he would like to greet the Queen himself. The Duke Chancellor is a bit taken aback and asks the protagonist what he's doing. And as our hero approaches,
"Oh, the Queen!"
a man bellows at our hero to stop. He continues, explaining that regardless of our hero's achievements, as an outsider, he can't just approach the Queen. Like that, our hero's entourage stands there, taking in the situation. The Queen's Chancellor is certainly right, they think. After all, who knows what a crazy outsider might do to their Queen? Our hero's group is collectively holding their breath. Even if the Chancellor is being harsh, they hope our hero doesn't get angry. But then, amidst all the tension, a little one begins to stretch. He declares that's enough. He won't hold back any longer. He addresses the Queen directly, announcing that he is the sovereign of the Leonhardt Kingdom, and his name is Leon Draconia Leonhardt. Our protagonist, Leon, states that she must do her duty, regardless of how harsh it may sound. The portly, arrogant noble is completely offended. He demands to know what Leon thinks he's doing, and more importantly, what he plans to do next. Faced with these accusations, the pompous noble immediately orders the captain to arrest Leon. This guy's crazy! Our hero simply grabs the portly noble's head and well, everyone. Leon's actions leave his own soldiers completely stunned. Did you catch what he just did there, man? And now, for some reason, the Protector is absolutely furious. He's looking like Homelander, dude. And it looks like the video's over. Once again. All right, everyone. If you've watched this far, I think you enjoy the way I make these videos, right? And if you're starting to like them, know that I'm striving to improve more and more. And if you're interested in supporting this channel, consider becoming a member, folks, or making a donation. I would be really excited. But if you don't have the means to do that, no problem, man. Your visibility, your comments, they're really great. They're spot on. And that's why I thank all of you. And that's all. Take care. God bless. And goodbye, everyone.